Get the text. They're working in here.
Okay, so we are at 1:35 right now, and let's get started. So I'll read my script first. Welcome to San Mateo County Coastside Design Review Committee meeting. The design review committee is established in the zoning regulations. Is appointed by the board of supervisors of San Mateo County. Today is Thursday, October 12, 2023, and now is 1:35 p.m. This hearing consists of 3 projects. For better recording quality and orderliness of this meeting, please put your phone on silence, avoid actual chatting or whispering in the audience, and wait for my prompt before you speak on any matters. This meeting is being audio recorded. There are 2 opportunities for the public to speak, including oral communications for matters not on the agenda, and a separate public comment session for each project on the agenda. Please review the agenda to identify which item you wish to speak on and the time of that item. For fairness and orderliness meeting, and due to the amount of possible speakers, please limit your speech to 3 minutes or less, which will be strictly enforced. And you will be respectfully asked to stop speaking after 3 minutes. The chair will open public comment session during the public comment period for oral communications for matters not on the agenda and for each item on the regular agenda. I will first read comments received before the meeting into the record for those who are not present in this meeting. For those attending this meeting in person, speaker forms are available in the rear of this room. And please fill out the speaker form and provide it to me before each public comment session. For those on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to raise your hand to speak on an agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Please provide your speaker form, raise your hand and press *9 on your device before each public comment session. And late speaker requests will not be accepted. Please note that members of the public must wait for my prompt in connection with each agenda item before speaking. Also, you cannot speak on an agenda item that's later in the meeting. When you hear your name or last 4 digits of your phone number called, I'll prompt you to come up to the front or unmute your account. Then I'll inform that you may begin speaking. And I will ask you to state your name for the record. For those joining by phone, pressing *6 will mute or unmute your microphone. The design review committee's decision for item 1, 2, and 3 today, if any, will only be recommendations regarding project compliance and not the final decision on the project. The decision of which will take place at a later date. The CDRC does not review matters related to zoning standards, local coastal policies, and general plan, and will only review a project based on the design review guidelines and standards. For example, concerns regarding a possible impact on the environment or parking compliance will not be addressed in this meeting. The CDRC will only review design and architectural aspects of the project based on design review guidelines and standards. Depending on the scale and scope of changes, continued projects may be placed on the next month's agenda if the revisions are submitted to the county by the end of business day, Friday, October 20th, 2023. Applicants should note that continuous letters may not be available by that date and are encouraged to take note of the committee's feedback. The next Coastside Design Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, November 9th, 2023. Item 1 is roll call. Rebecca Ketchen.
Here.
Mark Stackmeyer. John Stedman. Not here. Mark Dean. Here. With that, I turn it over to the chair since Mark Stackmeyer is not present, and I believe Rebecca will be the interim chair for this meeting.
Okay, interim chair. I haven't done this before, so please pipe up if I'm doing anything wrong. We just start with reading chair's report of old business from the 9/14 meeting. So item number 1 is demonstration of scale story poles. SMC long-term planning has shelved the outline for adopting story pole ordinance as a requirement until further notice. On the 12th of May, 2022, one-year anniversary will be June 23. I guess that's passed as well. Continue to follow up for a new date of adoption request at each meeting. Demonstration of scale will follow the 5/8/2020 doc referenced in the link attached to the agenda. Demonstration of scale states Images will accurately represent all sides of the project along with immediately adjacent structures. In the case of demonstration of scale, where pictorial rendering is used, it must include the structure on all three sides and or an actual depiction of surrounding area in the rendering to scale. Planners will emphasize the requirement to applicants projects may be continued for not following the DOS and story goal requirements. So this is something that comes up at the hearing. The committee in general is in favor of story polls as demonstrations of scale as opposed to renderings due to the ease of manipulating rendered images. And so where rendered images are used, we want to make sure that they really accurately represent the scale of all sides of the structure and the surrounding structures. The July hearing, item 2 was held at the county supervisor's office. The room was large enough to seat all the attendees, and the screen viewing was substantially improved. Thank you to Glenn. Next item is the design standards update, a correction. Planning Commission has not adopted the residential standards update by CDRC starting 3/2022. Camille indicated it was not on the 2023 agenda. I guess there's a request from Mark Stegmeyer. I know when the agenda for 2024 is to see if it's possible to get that on there. When is agenda for PCST for 2024? I'm not sure of that.
Yeah, so probably Mark is asking about like when we're going to take a work plan to the commission for
Okay,
review and
yeah.
approval. So I haven't heard anything from either Neil or our new planning manager, Bharat Singh. So I haven't heard any updates from them, and I don't think we are in the process of taking this project to them. But so when it comes up, before it comes up, we will keep that in mind, and we will try to add this item, like we'll try to raise this item to the planning manager's consideration. And so yeah, so we'll update the CRC as soon as possible once we have an update.
Okay, and then from the minutes last time, there was discussion about Mark's petition to be posted on Nextdoor. And so they had about 35 responses, and I think Camille wanted to clarify that the county is neutral and has no comment. This is just an initiative being taken as individual members of the community. Last question, do board architects that came up last month, for architects to serve on the board, do they need to be from San Mateo County? The answer is yes, they need to be from San Mateo County, and they need to be 40% time residents in the county in order to serve on the committee. So we are still actively recruiting for new positions. We have a lot of vacancies. This brings us to new business for today. CDRC positions. Always appealing for people who are interested in serving as a community rep, or if there's architects in the audience who are interested in serving in this role as an architect or a new project. There are 2 new applicants for the position for Moss Beach. There's one for Moss Beach alternate and one returning member for Montero position. Do you have any information on those applicants?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any related information related to this candidates, but their application is being handled by our board supervisor, our board commission liaison. And once we have any updates, then we will share with the committee and also with the members of the public at a future PRC hearing.
Okay, and then I have a question. Did you ever hear back from John Stedman about this meeting, attending this meeting at all? Did you get any response?
I got a response
Okay.
earlier today, and Mark didn't see the information, but we had a plan, which is to have Mark Dean cover for John Stedman.
Okay.
And Linda, yeah, so.
Linda's retired, right?
Linda has retired,
So I see
but at
she's
that
still
time-
listed. John is not retired, we haven't been very active.
Yes, but at that time, yeah.
Still in communication.
Yeah.
Is there any requirement, sorry, is this?
Please jump on in.
Well, this is a requirement for, how many? Yes.
I'm not aware of any limits, but our general policy is if the primary community representative is not available, we go to the nearest and the closest representative. Yeah, so that's our current policy.
Yeah, typically community reps, since I've been on board, Aside from maybe Mark and Beverly, community reps typically only show up for the projects that they're reviewing that are in their local neighborhood. And architects tend to show up for everything. Yeah, for everything. Especially now that we're down to one. So, let's see, so we're gonna, Mark, you wanna skip that?
Oh, actually,
Or,
I
you
did.
do?
Yeah, I
Okay,
realized.
so let me turn it over to you for discussion of the template for standards.
Okay, I think, this isn't, like an item that's gonna take I don't think we're gonna have an action or request or motion at the end, but, just one of the things I've noticed in the last couple of meetings or the meetings that I've attended, there seem to be, you know, a particular. I do wonder if, you know, this particular style, which is like a coastside.
So craftsman,
Coastal craftsman, that's exactly it. If in a way, a lot of our comments lead towards architects who are very seasoned in this area, basically developing that with the idea that that's a little bit easier to get through, you know, at least our process. So, you know, coastal craftsman, a lot of like roof slopes, you know, a lot of articulation, particular style. I just, you know, I don't know if there's a way necessarily for us to just make sure that we're encouraging other design styles as well. Maybe to just a more vibrant and diverse community.
I think this ties into the rewriting of the guidelines that we've been engaged in, and I don't know where that stands, Glenn, but I do know that when we have worked through the text of the guidelines to try and evolve it, in the last round, where we had group meetings going through that, we were changing some of the language around flat roofs and trying to revise the standards to be media friendly and to modern architecture, and not to try and, like you said, make a cookie cutter coastal craftsman being the approvable style around here. So the guidelines we have do talk about like kind of eclectic nature of coastside development, but they are, I would say they're definitely biased towards coastal craftsman design. So I think that working through the revision of the guidelines, I don't know if there's a target date to have the guidelines. We're hoping to move those in the direction of being a little bit more flexible. And also, and we'll probably see this today, because I know we have a project coming up that has, for example, 100% flat roofs, thing which is not permitted in the guidelines. We have, but since my tenure here, we've largely taken the attitude that if a design application has a cohesive style and something which differs from the guidelines in terms of roof planes is appropriate and consistent with the style that they're trying to achieve, we often are in the end. So they, you know, requiring strict adherence to those guidelines.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to tie it back into the standards and the standard review. And then also, I guess the county and county planners and folks who are coming, you know, yeah, that type of input obviously would be very useful. So it's not a whoever's on the board or style purposes.
Yeah, so regarding that, we agree with what Rebecca has just said, and regarding those regulations on like architectural style, and we don't want cookie cutters on the coastside. However, we're limited by those group policies. So this will probably involve like our level management staff, or maybe like some kind of grassroots movement to enable that. So that requires like higher level discussion. So here in this, at the CDRC level, our job is to enforce what we have already. And we can kind of push for like the design guidelines, revisions or updates. That's not requiring like regulations or like promotion of certain architectural style that requires high level discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, so if that's really a concern from the community, then now we can kind of organize it or like do like public outreach and find out what we really want. And then we can express the concerns to the higher level management staff and even the bank.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's necessarily getting expressed uniformly by the community per se, but I do wonder if yeah, maybe a way to go about this is a member of the committee, volunteer myself, almost write the memo back to the bank. So let me think about that, but I don't know if that's done before, where we're just, you know, writing, if you will, kind of a recommendation or suggestion about it. Yeah, I think I'll add a little bit more weight. That is standard. revised.
Yeah, so we will keep track of the design guideline update, progress, and after this meeting, I will send an email to both Camille and our planning, services manager, Verizon, and see if there's any update, at this point. And in addition to that, then for any like future, communications, then I can be the liaison for like the most part, and then we can, talk about that, just so you know, like, when you have like a recommendation or something in writing available, then, I can be a liaison.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
That one, yeah.
The next item on the chair report says new cases, please review ASAP and double check the 24 hours before the hearing for revisions addendums. I think this is also just something Mark Stegmeyer added on here. Have we been having projects where there are revisions coming in very short order before the hearing and we're not
I
having
don't,
time to review them?
I don't recall any, but, it has been like kind of like a, internal process that planners review projects and, checking with the project applicants. Like 48 hours to 72 hours before meeting, we send out a reminder. If there's any like major changes or revisions, then, we will work with applicants closely. At the same time, we will publicly inform the CRC. And we're also aware of like the noticing requirements and also requirements required by, the local and state policies. And, yeah, so when it comes up, we will, follow through and, discuss internally and make sure it's compliant. But, I don't recall any project that's been revised like 24 hours before
Okay.
the hearing. But if there's any specific example, just feel free to let us know, then, we can investigate and look into it and find out what happened and how we can improve in the future.
I wonder if Mark,
Maybe we put this on the agenda next month also, so
Yeah.
that when Mark is here and
Yeah,
has a
sure.
specific comment about it.
I wonder if he's referring.
Oh, yeah, correspondences. I think the current requirement is that we upload everything that's received before 5 p.m. On the day before to the CRC website and share with the, committee. And anything received after that, it may not be captured.
But we'll read it out loud.
But yeah, I try to find them, but sometimes people email me correspondence like 5 minutes before
Yeah.
hearing. That's very difficult. As you can see, I don't have access to my inbox right now. So that makes it very challenging. And, yeah, so when that happens, we always tell people we'll always forward those correspondence to project planner. So project planner can take, those factors into consideration at the time they make a recommendation or render decision on the project.
Okay. And so at this time, that's everything that was on the agenda for the chair report, so I would like to open for public comment for items discussed during the chair report and other items not on the agenda. Just to note, this is not the time when we'll speak about any projects which are on the agenda, so we have a 2 o'clock, a 3 o'clock, and a 4 o'clock. If you're here for items 1, 2, or 3, you can make comments on those projects during their review time. If anyone in the audience has comments on anything else in the chair report or otherwise that they'd like to bring up, let's open it up to public comment.
Before we open up public comments, and I will need to restart my laptop. There's
Okay.
some Zoom issue right now.
So we're not recording.
Yes, I'm going to pause recording and we will come back in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so sorry about that. I'm not sure what's going on with it. So everyone on Zoom, so please note that this meeting will be ended for the last for 2 minutes. That's because our technical difficulties, and we'll come back in 2 minutes, and please rejoin the meeting in 2 minutes. Thank you, and sorry for inconvenience.
Do we have speakerphones?
We have 2, but I'm not sure if they want to speak on this agenda. I'll check in. When you hear your name or last four digits of the phone number called, I'll prompt you to come up to the front or unmute your account, then I will then inform that you may begin speaking. I will then ask you to state your name for the record. For those joining by phone, pressing *6 will mute or unmute your microphone. As mentioned earlier in this meeting, please limit your speech to 3 minutes or less. Chair, I don't see any raised hands on Zoom, and I haven't received any speakers from the in-person attendees. Please indicate if you would like to post public comment.
Yes, let's close public comment.
Okay, public comment closed, and now we're moving to item 1. And we have our project applicants here, and our project planner is Canoa Kelly. Let me just make sure everyone's
here before, we move on to the next step, that's the project description. So I'll promote Kenoa to panelists, that way Kenoa can speak and share any information with us. Yeah, we have our project planner, Kenoa Kelly, and we have our project team here. And Mark Dean will be the committee representative, so please start by introducing items to the group.
Hey, hello everyone, this is for agenda item number 1. Owner is Stanley Payne, applicant is Edward C. Love. File number is PLN 2019-00220. The location is at 568 Ferdinand Avenue, El Granada. This is for the consideration of a design review recommendation to allow a major modification. A major modification to a previously approved 2,276 square feet, 2-story single-family residence with an attached 475 square feet garage on a legal 5,001 square feet parcel. Recommended for approval by the CDRC on September 9th, 2020, and approved by the Planning Division on August 7th, 2020. The proposed modifications would result in a 2,629 square feet, 2-story residence with a 479 square feet detached garage, which is an increase of 4 square feet to the garage and 339 square feet to the first floor, associated with lowering the garage by 3.2 feet and involving 335 cubic yards of grading to comply with DPW's standard for driveway slang. Other design modifications include alterations to the front elevation by extending the front porch over the garage and adding a new slider door, changing a window to a slider door in the north elevation, with the addition of a curved staircase leading to the front entry. A staff level grading permit is required for this modification. No tree removal is proposed. Due to the associated grading permit, the CDRT will not render a decision, but will make a recommendation regarding the project's compliance with design review standards. A staff level decision on the DR permit and grading permit will take place after October 12th, 2021. The project is not appealable to the California Coastal Commission, and the application is deemed complete as of September 7th. Project planner is Kenoa Kelly, and with that said, we can open it up to the or hand it over to the applicants.
Yes.
To talk about the project.
Presentation. Yes, and I have shared the project plan set on my screen here. So yeah, you may use this, you would tell me like the page number or sheet number, so I can go to appropriate page, so you can
Yeah, please identify yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Colton Palmer, worked for Ed C. Love for about 3 years now, and I'm representing him and Stanley Pang on this nice house design. As this gentleman told us prior, this was approved back in 2020, and then the problem that we had was Public Works deemed that our driveway approach was too steep. So that kind of opened up the opportunity for us to do a little bit of a redesign here. It actually allowed us to produce, in my opinion, a much better design in all aspects. It allowed us to take the first level and extend it over the garage, rather than prior to that, we only had a little small entryway on level 1. So that gave us a lot more space, a lot more room to kind of accommodate our client Stanley. Yeah, if we can scroll down, we can kind of take a look at the floor plan here. Just keep on going. I think you're going to be A102 or so. Here's our C1 plan. Here's our site plan. Here we go. Yeah.
this one.
Yep, that's perfect. So this whole area right here, that's labeled family room, before our revisions to this design, that was not possible because of the difference in height between the garage floor and the first floor. Allowing the garage to sink down, I think it was 3.5 feet approximately. That allowed us to expand this living room area. We also got to add that nice hall bathroom for the downstairs guests or whoever may use it. The other couple modifications that were made is, along with this design, we also added a slider door out the master of the back. Before, that was just a large window. So that gives a little bit of, easier access to the backyard for, the owners of the home. Lastly, for the first floor here, we expanded the front porch to also extend over the garage. And again, since the garage shrank or was brought down 3 feet, that allowed us to expand that to give a nice front look to the home. If you could scroll down, you could take a look at the second floor. The second floor didn't change at all. That was just left the same. So, that was approved prior, and in my opinion is a nice open design. Yeah, let's take a look at the elevation views, one, if you don't mind. Kind of scroll down, let's see here, that's the roof plan, area plan, here we go. Yeah, so again, you can kind of see this front porch here, how it's now extending all the way over the garage, which is nice. Our roof line above the first floor also changed slightly. We kept the same style, it just got manipulated a little bit because of the change to the first floor. Let's see, looking at the west elevation here, you can see this new staircase in the backyard was added because of the slider door leading the master bedroom. And yeah, all of the window was, all of the windows did not change much at all, aside from the slider door on our north elevation right down here. Let's see here. Looking at our east elevation here, we kind of added this little staircase here. Now that the garage was dropped down, there's a lot bigger difference between the front, the height of the front elevation and the height of the back of the house. So we kind of added this nice little concrete steps that are going to come up, and then there's just going to be some ground cover that's going to lead you to the backyard there. And then, Glenn, can we just look at the front elevation again? I think we're at A201. Yeah, the other thing I didn't mention was the spiral staircase here. Now that we had a bigger height difference between the driveway and the first floor, we took out our old design, which was kind of just an L-shaped staircase, and we incorporated a kind of a nice little architectural look to the front of the house with a half curved staircase coming up. Okay, let's see. I don't think there's much else to really look at here. Yeah, our height didn't change much of any. Really, the garage just kind of was lowered. Any questions?
Yeah, but that's time for some questions, probably meetings.
Did the ceiling height of the garage increase, or did the floor plate of the first floor also come down?
So the ceiling of the garage actually decreased quite a bit. Before, the ceiling was brought all the way up to the second floor. So the second floor was the ceiling of the garage. Now the first floor is the ceiling of the garage. So I think we're sitting at right about 8-foot ceilings for the garage.
And the first floor plate, is its relationship to natural grade the same as it was, or did the first floor plate elevation change?
No, it did not. It's the same, exactly.
And were there any changes? The one facade that I'm seeing that doesn't have a lot of articulation is the east facade. And I'm wondering if that is as it was approved previously, or if there were any other changes on that.
Right, yeah, all of the windows stayed the same, the roof line was the same. The only, I guess, difference is that you can see on the east side is gonna be this staircase here. And I believe we still had a small staircase, but now the height differential is quite a bit more. So we included that. And then if you see this little dash line here, that's a retaining wall that's gonna kind of retain this earth that's gonna be there, right? Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's directed towards you necessarily or towards landlord, but the concrete driveway seems like a pretty large, massive impervious surface. And I didn't see a calculation there as far as the previous surface. Is that something that Kanoa looked at? You can speak, you can put them on the spot.
Yeah, so there's Kanoa. I don't look at those things, but we have our in-house building official reviewed it. This is already going through building review, which is why the design review typically gets routed out. But in this case, we just went off all of the approvals that were already done at the building phase. So the project was approved by drainage and our geotech reviewer.
There is a 10%, I think, limit to pervious cover, so it should have been reviewed for that, if under that, if it's gonna hurt. I didn't know that.
Okay, I think it sounds like before the project was approved, DPW had an issue with the driveway, so there's redesign done, so, yeah.
Yeah, the original issue with the driveway was it was too steep and it didn't meet current building code. So really the actual size, Glenn, would you mind scrolling up to the site plan? I think we're gonna be A002 possibly. There we go. Yeah, so this driveway approach, that didn't change much of any from the original design. It just got lowered, so it wasn't as steep of an upslope.
So I'm looking at the driveway profile on C1. You talk over C1 Glenn? So just it's page 8.
There we go.
So is this red dashed line in the bottom lower corner, is this showing us our driveway?
Let's see here. So we have a difference in elevation from where you enter the garage is at a height of 89, and then where you kind of enter from the road to the driveway is at 88.4. So that's a difference of 1.6 feet. Or I'm sorry, it's a difference of just.
That's a pretty reasonable slope then.
Right. Let's see if there's anything else we want to look at here. Oh, we all of our downspouts. We got
And
a grading
the
plan.
exterior, the materials and colors are all exactly as they were.
They are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all there. Oh, okay, if you want the rest.
Sure.
But did you happen to see the correspondence that was submitted in for this item?
I did not know.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is one correspondence regarding this project to go by obscure classes, the glass windows.
We did receive that.
Yeah, we can discuss. I wanted to see it, yeah.
The client is aware about that and he's totally fine with that.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the obscure window, yeah.
Okay.
Open it up to public comment,
Yeah, we have one, so, yeah, so we have finished, finish with clarification question for the site.
All right, so I open it up. to public.
Okay, great, we're now opening public comments for item number 1. The public correspondence received, for this project prior to the meeting, has been uploaded to the meeting webpage on the county planning website and forwarded to the CPRC. We have, received only one comment letter, the neighbor at 562, suggests obscure glass for windows, being used for the 2 windows on the second floor. So that's the only comment we have received. And for those attending this meeting in person, speaker forms are available on table, on the rear table. Please provide me with your speaker slip immediately. For those on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to raise your hand to speak on this agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Please provide your speaker form, raise your hand or press *9 on your device immediately, and late speaker requests will not be accepted.
When you hear your name or last four digits of your phone number call, I prompt you to come up to the front or unmute your and inform that you may begin speaking. I will then ask you to state your name for the record. For those joining by phone, please press *6 to mute or unmute your microphone. As mentioned earlier in this meeting, please limit your speech to 3 minutes. I don't see any raised hands on Zoom, and we have received two speakers. So first speaker is Karen Larson. Would you like to speak on this item?
Yeah.
Yeah, please come to the front and, yeah.
Okay, like Karen Morrison. I've lived on that block for 45 years and I just have some questions. Basically, I live across the street. Sure. The structure that's gonna be built is around the very steep corner. And that may be why you redevelop the driveway, I'm not sure. But, our concerns as a neighborhood, we have another neighbor here and we have Andrew, the other one that had the window concern. There's a lot of us are concerned about where are you guys gonna be parking the construction vehicles? Is there a porta potty? What's happening with the mailboxes that are right in front of your driveway? None of that's been addressed and we just like to know what the plans are.
Yes, speaking of the porta potty, it should be shown here on C1, actually. It's normally where we show the porta potty location. Let's see if they call it out. I don't think they do. Let's scroll down one page, Glenn. Let's see here. Reuse. Let's see. So, I don't see it on here, but just to, oh, there we go. There it is. Yeah, nice. Okay, so that's our porta potty location. And to kind of speak to your question directly, the mailboxes, I'm unaware of how that plays out. But I will bring it up to the attention of my boss and also the owner to see, just for my knowledge and to let you guys be at ease of what's gonna happen there. But related to construction access and everything like that, likely, given the amount of cubic yards needs to be removed from here, the first thing is gonna be excavation.
Right.
And once that excavation is completed, it's gonna give a lot more room on the property to, stockpile the lumber, to, allow for space, and people, aren't gonna be right on the street as much. Now, given, depending on the contractor that develops this, it's really gonna come down to is, how should I say, competency on ensuring, there's enough space and allowance for passengers to get through safely.
I don't know if you know, but that street, there's no parking.
Right.
There's basically no parking. And around that curve that you're going, there's no parking. So we just want to be assured that our driveways in front of our house, that we're gonna have, unlimited access to get in and out.
Right.
We've been bombarded with years of construction in the block around us. And several of our neighbors had like 6 flat tires. So we'd like to have some consideration of people living there as a construction crew. We're happy to have new neighbors. I'm not saying I'm against development or anything. But those are serious questions about it.
Right, yeah, I understand. The best thing that I could do at this point is to, have a real conversation when the contractor does provide his bids and the owner does choose a contractor, to express all of your guys' concerns to him and, let him know, say, hey, these neighbors aren't gonna be okay with any incompetency when it comes to parking and when it comes to, things like that. And I can, definitely do that for you. Aside from that, I'm not quite sure how else I can, give you guys any true assurances. But it's really gonna come down to, does the contractor have their stuff under control, right? A good contractor shouldn't be blocking neighbors. He shouldn't be leaving, any debris on the road. There shouldn't be any flat tires, right?
That's what we've been hit with, is flat tires. We've had cigarette butts all over the street.
Right.
And it doesn't feel very respectful for people that live there.
Yeah. Right, just for example, if I were to be building this house, I am also a contractor. What I would do is, this is our construction entrance here, shown on the erosion control plan. I would make sure that this space is really large, and that's just these big rocks, right? To not allow any, dirt or unwanted debris from the construction to pass through. I would make sure that that was, as big as possible to accommodate, whether there's 2 or 3 trucks there during the day, that they can be on site and not be encroached into the
Yeah,
roadway.
the thing is, you're right on the curve right there, so that's where it's a little bit in and out, but I'm sure you got that figured out. And the other question is, is Stanley, the owner of the house across the street from you, is he building this, or who's Edward Love? I don't know who these people are.
Yeah, so Edward Love is Andrew and I's boss. He's a local architect in Half Moon Bay. So he's the one that, designed the house, the whole house, and Stanley Pang is the one who owns the property and is the one developing it.
Oh, he's developing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Now-
if anything, the construction group workers could use family driveway, current driveway.
But Stanley's driveway is right in front of my house, and that's hard for me to get in and out, if we're gonna use his driveway.
Karen, I'd say that maybe the good news is, it sounds like Stanley's a local resident there in the block, and I think that's always useful. Like, even this is a provide some.
Yeah, I'm not
And I think as far as the mailboxes go as well.
Yeah, that's kind of a federal issue, because it's the US Post.
Yeah, I think
Post office.
there's a whole cluster, right?
Right.
So I would suggest it's not obviously our territory, but that talk to the post office, there's development there, what's gonna happen with that big box.
Okay, okay. I think that's pretty much all the questions I have. Do you know when it's gonna start, at the beginning, around approximately the beginning date?
no idea. Yeah, we still have to get approval from the CDRC, and then we need to get approval from San Mateo County. Then it needs to go out to get bids from contractors. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's really.
Can I get one of your cards? Do you guys have cards?
There is a winter grading moratorium.
Yeah.
So there are, so one which can be granted, but typically construction starts do not happen between now and the 1st of May.
Yeah.
So I think it would be unlikely that construction would start before spring.
Really, it's the first,
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense if we have another hour in your right.
Hey, Glenn, how are we doing on time?
I'll say it again.
Are we okay on time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll-
thank you.
I'll
Thank
make
you.
it once.
You're welcome. Thank you, Karen.
And then the next person we have,
I'm just an observer.
okay, great. I will pass your information along to the project planner. So yeah, so your project planner will hopefully be keeping the loop. Yeah, okay, thank you. And now I see no more raised hands. Let me just confirm. I see no more raised hands or speaker forms for this item. So Mark, please indicate if you'd like to post public comment for this item.
Yes, I'd like to close public comment and
Sounds good.
start the committee discussion period. That's next. Okay. So this is the part where the committee talks about some of the questions and information you heard and things. Sure.
And you were there.
Would you like to? I can start.
Okay.
I feel like when I'm like, we're gonna be a little less for briefer,
Be fairly brief, but let's see what you have to say.
Okay, so, I maybe a couple things, and I really agree with that on this, but, I'm not a huge fan of that middle staircase coming in. I think the upper landing area or the upper balcony if you will, has a kind of siding. The first floor has the middle hill. I don't know what kind of food you make in the first place, but sort of staircase.
The shape of the staircase changed, did the railings change? Is it style?
No, no, the railings stayed the same. Yeah.
So it's a L, you mentioned an L-shaped staircase.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure, what other material we could really put into a curved staircase, we can't really do wood with that kind of curvature. Prefabricated metal railing, I think is probably the best way to go. Yeah.
And let's see here. Yeah, the driveway, it sounds like from that's already been reviewed, just in terms of runoff and slope. I don't know what it's in previous times as well. But it seems like as best as possible, making that impervious. surface would be advisable. A pretty big swath of square footage on that property. And, I know that there's in the zoning regulations, there's a limit on how much impervious surface you can have under or below 18 inches.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify one thing. So regarding that 10% limitation, there are some exemptions to that limitation. So just want everyone to be aware of that exception. Okay.
Yeah, this is for the project planner. I just wanted to weigh in on that. So it's 10% unless they can come up with or implement measures that will reduce it down to 10%. So they can implement some, they can collect the runoff in various ways that will reduce it to that 10% level. And it says it can be approved by the director, which is also the building official. So he's reviewed the plans for water retention and approved it. So they've been able to implement acceptable measures.
As far as the square footage of that impervious surface, is that something that you guys looked at against the zoning regulations?
So like I said, it's not just 10%. If they can put more impervious surface than that, if they can implement water retention measures that will keep it at that level. So they can exceed that number as far as impervious surfaces, as long as they, like I said, implement some kind of water retention system that's acceptable to the building official.
Okay, thanks. Sorry I didn't catch that the first time, and for making you repeat it. So appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's.
Okay. Well, I think that the changes, from what we had before, from the architectural perspective, seem to be fairly minor. The only thing that, I wanted to comment on is that it doesn't seem like there's excellent lead findings to the front entry with the big opening just to the right, and that they're both glass doors, and there's no sort of differentiations of the roof form over the front door. I feel like it's a little unclear where the entry is. It's also not a line right over the top of the stairs as you come down. So this, I don't know if you have images of what the previous approved plan included, but you mentioned that the living room area came forward and previously all that had been there was the entry, which makes me think that maybe there was a more kind of dedicated entry vestibule form in the previous application. Is it something that we can pull up the old application? I should have asked before today, or maybe that Kanoa knows or has on file what the entry looked like before.
I can explain it
Yeah.
verbally if that would help. Glenn, would you mind going down to page 201? A201, please, yeah. It's a little further down than that. Yeah, it's gonna be the front elevation view. There we go. Right there. Yep. Yeah, so let me see if I can transfer over here. So there was a little bit more of a distinct entryway, as you're mentioning. This whole upper porch wasn't there, and this garage face that's out further than the front of the house was elevated a lot higher. And there was kind of like a decorative arbor that was there. I do see your point as to kind of the distinctness. I don't know if you had noticed, but this little roof here that's hipped, that does protrude out of the page further than the rest of the roof. So that kind of gives it a little bit more of that entry look. I will say, the frontscape of this house and the usability of that front porch, I think personally is greatly improved. Even taking into consideration the absent big entry look.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rebecca, are you thinking about we've been from the outside or the inside?
From the outside, as you approach, I mean, obviously, it's the first door you're going to come to it.
Right.
It's not, I don't think people will not be able to find their way into the house, but one of the things we look for is a kind of entryway that says entryway.
Mhm.
And I think that the little roof form that you have there is over this, it's not quite a bay, but let's call it a bay, this projection. in
Right.
the front. So I'm just wondering whether that form might extend to also capture,
That, you know, that is,
widen so that it also covers, so there's a little more cover on the entryway. Or if the roof that continues across, it's, the wall isn't plain behind it, right? So it's just an applied roofing detail, is that correct?
I'm sorry, which,
To the right of the front door,
okay,
the wall below the roof and the wall above the roof, the walls are in plane, is that correct? Second floor is stacked directly above. the
correct,
first
yes.
floor. So that roof is there as an ornamental detail there to break down the massing, right?
Yep,
So
exactly.
my thoughts would be, would that roof form, either would that roof form shorten so that it only covered the entryway? Or would the taller portion, which is covering the bay, extend to the right so that it covers more? Or would that roof form perhaps change to something like the trellis that you had before?
Right.
I think any one of those would be acceptable, what I'm interested in seeing, or it could even, bump out to cover more of that.
So I will say, when I was doing this design and I was, I spent a lot of time on this little roof here. And I originally had it a lot grander, kind of a little bit more of what you're describing. And it was a lot bigger over this area and it also didn't hip on this right side here. The problem we had came with the structural engineer. He wasn't capable of designing something that could only attach to, a flat wall and could protrude that far. So that was our true limitation for this roof. And Ed, Andrew and I kind of landed on this design kind of as a compensation with the engineer. And I do think it matches and, I think exploring other ideas is nice, but I will say have spent a lot of time exploring other ideas.
Have you looked at options that included bringing a post down in the front corner where the, I'm on page A104, which is page 16. If you could toggle over to that one.
I think that's one page.
Where the deck jogs back. And this may not be the most desirable solution. I had to put the coming down at the corner of the deck where it goes down and
Here.
corner.
Bringing that out further.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
that would support more of a roof
Right.
form. I don't want to redesign the entry for you.
Right.
And I appreciate you probably looked at a number of things. I'd be, if you feel the same way, I'd be content with finding some language to, just drop it out. Try to signify entry more clearly, and then depending on how we feel, we can also talk about whether that can just be a
Suggestion.
rejection or whether it needs to be a condition of approval. Because I think that if we can come up with something that you guys are comfortable with today, then I'd like to write that into it, but I also want to take the time to. work on it.
I think in general I am, if you flip back to page 2, Glenn, sorry, but just page 2, just that. I get understanding, but I think the front of this house is what it's starting to feel kind of part of the pitch versus single.
After we have the, original versus revised.
I was hoping you guys had that. Yeah, I created a plan set that showed the exact differences. So let's do what we have here. Yeah, so,
It was recessed.
right.
Yeah.
So with our new design, it created a garage floor, a level 1 and a level 2. Our prior plans showed level 1 and a garage on one plan set. So this is our existing over here on the left side. And then our proposed garage level and then our proposed first floor here.
And the difference, did it give you more interior square footage on the left side?
It did,
Is that-
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we kind of utilize this space a lot differently with this design versus this. This was just kind of like, as you mentioned, just an entrance, right? And then this, now we're utilizing this as a family room and as an office. So, the interior feel of it plays a huge role as well. Yeah. Glenn, if you could scroll down, we could look, I also did the same thing with the elevation views here. The
Okay.
second floor, that's the same, you can keep going. Roof plan also very, very similar. Here we go. So now we have that original front elevation, as I mentioned, above the garage, that's one face going all the way up. And then, over here, what I do like about this is it kind of looks like there's kind of 3 tiers to it. Versus this, we kind of only have 2 faces. But not much change, other than that, like I mentioned, the upper top here, none of that changed at all.
Yeah, it changes nice, it just reduces the dominance of the garage.
Right.
Yeah, it's really nice to see the comparison, actually, I agree that it's improvement. I think that, there is something nice about that trellis, I wonder if we could find some language about, adding a roof form over the front entry door, which could be a trellis or an extension of roof, which could be supported. However your engineer works it out, a roof form over the front entry door, either a trellis or matching the existing roofing overlay, which could be supported with a post or a bracket, or to whatever extent the engineer is able to work out, just having it I guess maybe 18 inches is gonna be the limit of what the engineer's gonna wanna just extend out, like in me, that's kind of a standard. How far is the projection of that front roof form over the front wall right now?
Glenn, if we go up one page, I think we have the roof plan shown there. Let's see here, so, let's see, we don't clearly show that wall. Our lower wall, is roughly here, I don't know, Andrew, can you scale that? 1.6, yeah.
Sounds like.
Thanks.
Go for it. I think that alternately recessing the entryway slightly would create a little bit more of a sense of dedicated entry. And then, can we go to page 13?
Page 13.
Yeah,
Oh,
so that's the floor plan. So, I'm just going to. So I think that this little section from this line to this line could recess in slightly, or there could be some kind of architectural feature here that might allow you to catch a little bit of this roof extending out more, or there could be a trellis similar to what you used before that covered this, or that maybe the roof went to here and then changed to trellis or something like that. So I think that what I'd be interested in proposing is that we try to leave some loose language to give you some options with the stated goal of creating a more well-defined sense of entry at the front door, and then leaving some suggestions, but also trying to leave some flexibility so that then if that were a condition of approval, you guys would have the opportunity to come up with what you think satisfies that, and then it would only go to staff level, right? It would be for Canoa or you to say whether whatever you propose has succeeded in creating a better defined sense of entrance. Would that be how it would work if we made it a condition rather than a suggestion?
Yeah, so, when they submit like their revised plan, you're like before the planning decision or before the lease issuance, one of the planners or will review that plan to make sure it's compliant with the CRC's recommendation or the condition. And if the planner is needed, then the planner may approach me or Camille to get like a second opinion or to get like a final determination on the adequacy.
So I will just say, touching on it one more time and giving you a little bit more perspective on the situation we're in. Since this was a major modification, we did revise the plans and had, the structural plans and the civil plans and all the plans revised and approved with the county. It's already been to the building department, it's already been through, every reviewing agency. With that, and also with the fact that, Ed, Andrew and I have spent a lot of time on this front roof scape, and we've tried a lot of different things. We have messed around with moving a few of these walls around. And, all three of us kind of determined that this was optimal. I would ask that, it is just a suggestion that you guys recommend, given all of that information. However, it's obviously up to you guys, but yeah.
Well, Glenn, can you just go back to just page two there? I see Rebecca's point where it feels like a side entrance. More so than an entrance, and adding in the trellis or it seems like the options of Rebecca mentioned aren't necessarily. Wouldn't necessarily need to go to structures or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it would take you back through other agencies. Let me float one other thing, which I think would differentiate it. What if that front door were not a glazed patio style door, but more an entry door, even with a top light, but just so that it kind of had a different temperature?
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that it would differentiate it from this slider door over here.
Yeah,
Kind of do like a half glass, or just like a glass up top.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I could be on board with that 100%.
So I think if we include that as one of the options, we can make it a condition and then give you sort of the
That would be
option to
nice.
explore a couple different ways.
Okay, so, what I'm hearing to summarize is that there would, well, Rebecca, you go.
No, you go ahead.
It's just that, it looks like there would be, two conditions. The first, which is the condition that the neighbor, included about the frosted windows.
Oh, yeah,
for
sorry,
the glass windows.
can we just define which windows those are? Can we
I would
take a
like
second
also
and
to do
make
that.
sure that we,
Please.
put into, so Glenn, if you could go to page
A102, A103.
16, will that, sorry.
Yeah, no,
I'm just, and is that neighbor present?
I think she will.
Okay.
No, she never chimed in actually.
yeah, it's a written comment.
Right.
So do we know which two windows are under discussion?
They're near the media room, so that's per the letter.
Oh, it's in the media room. It's those.
Yeah, so the
That's what the
paper
comment was?
is at 562,
Right.
at 562, so those are windows that may be
Okay.
into their
The
property.
media room.
Media room. Okay.
Must be the
So
media.
like the back.
Okay. Are
Can
there
we take a look at that elevation? Should be A202, I believe. Right, yeah, there we go. Oh, yeah, so these two windows right there, I think that's what she's discussing, and is it not, is it not this? Cause this would really be a bummer, because that's, right in the kitchen area, we definitely want maximum light and a little bit of a viewing corridor.
Oh, no, her diagram is calling out the two behind, but that's pretty clear.
The
So,
media?
the media room.
Okay,
So condition number one, sorry.
Yeah, so condition number one would be, to glaze frosted, basically obscure the.
yeah, and we already spoke to Stanley about that, and he is okay with that if it is requested.
Okay, so that'll show up as a condition, and the second condition is, looking at, addressing the front entrance, where we would be providing a series of options, not to, define your design, but basically, the options would include the trellis, would include a different door style, more in line of a front door to distinguish it from the other side. So we'll drop that in each, but essentially it's gonna provide those options. Another one's resizing the entrance door back further.
Yeah, so and we can go through this in the letter, but yeah, I think extending the amount of overhang or the amount of coverage over the front door, either by increasing the roof or recessing the entry door, changing the entry door to more of a wood or solid door style with a top lights, or shortening the existing first floor roof form and then adding back in some trellis from the previous design over the.
So those with all
All the
the
options.
options, yeah, okay, options or conditions, not they must do.
Yeah, so we can make the language to better define the sense of entryway, utilizing any or all of the list of options that we provide.
And we would like to craft that language so that it's not coming back necessarily to us, but it's for the planning commission or sorry, the planning staff to ultimately interpret, whether their change plans, conform with that condition. Any suggestions as well?
Do you want to make a suggestion to consider the use of pervious paving at the driveway?
Yes, that's a good point. So just, it would be a suggestion. Yeah, to look at drainage or just, but basically, do that as said. So you repeated it twice, but I'll just still include that as a suggestion.
And then I think maybe, we haven't done this with a suggestion before, but maybe we can make it just as a kind of note within the suggestion section that neighbors raised concerns about construction parking, and to please, indicate that the contractor shall coordinate to avoid blocking traffic and parking access. I think your contractor's gonna do that anyway. They'll come out and, talk to the neighbors and make sure there are no issues. It's not really a planning issue.
Yeah, so we wouldn't even be a suggestion necessarily, but a comment like that, I mean, this is it's a like a little different stage in the project, not necessarily design per se.
Yeah.
Any changes to the design is not gonna influence, that work unless.
No, it would be a way to register the community.
Okay, so, at this point, I agree with what Mark says, we, ask the applicant if you would like us to move forward with a decision.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would just want to touch on one last thing. I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I think it's important. Glenn, would you mind just going up one page again?
Sure.
So, I think we would be very willing to accommodate your guys' suggestions on changing the entryway by, changing the door and maybe even adding a trellis maybe in between the roof and the top of the door. Little cosmetics like that would be, we'd happily do. But we, obviously we would try to avoid any changes to our roof area, because that's gonna trigger, the civils will need to be revised, it'll need to go back through drainage review, it'll need to go back through, a couple of other agencies. So, with this small change, I would like, if we could come to a conclusion where it's, hey, we wanna do our best to accommodate you guys, but, maybe also ask for a little bit of grace so that we don't get caught up in this long system.
I think we can write it so that we have options such that simply changing the door would suffice.
I appreciate that.
But they will go ahead and list out the other things that we think could make the design a little more successful in terms of that sense, yeah. And then it's for the design team to take on the feeling.
Got it.
As long, if we give you a list and we say any or all, if you've done one of the items on that list, then I think that your staff will be able to see that you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for all your input too. That was very helpful.
You ready for us to proceed to a vote?
Please.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve this project with the two conditions that Mark just stated around adding obscure glazing to windows and the room and better defining the front entry door. Instead of the inside, the suggestion that we outlined. Or to recommend for approval.
I second that motion.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Rebecca Kathleen,
Aye.
Martin.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed, and this will be only a recommendation, and a decision will be made by your planning staff or a different decision-making body at a later date. So please work with your project planner and Moore County to get updates and work with them together and we'll provide it forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, and thank you, Canoa. And now we are at 2:49 PM. We're 10 minutes before the next project, item number 2. So we will take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 3 PM for item 2. That's PLN 2023, that 00028. That's on Mashland Avenue in Miramar. Okay, we'll come back in 10 minutes.
Great, thanks.
Oh, really? Hey, Andrew's one.
So, yes, yeah.
I know.
And, yeah, so hopefully. And, I happened to have, before I came, I don't see anyone on the street that jams.
Hey, there you go. Nice.
Wow. So that works. I thought you're online, so I have.
Oh, it's true.
And we'll discuss. And, okay, sure.
I think you were.
I think you guys try and do everything to, I can start sticking the cabinets in there and block countertops and everything starts to attract them on. They all keep this neat as good.
Okay, now this meeting is being audio recorded, and now we're at, item number 2. So I will pass it to Mark D.
Okay, I'm the representative for the Moss Beach area community, but since there's not a representative here for Miramar, I'm gonna be the presiding committee member here. This is an application from owner Ruth and Paul Ward. My apologies if I mispronounced that. The applicant is Karen Friedman, and the file number is PLN 2023-00028. And the location is on Magellan Avenue in Miramar. This is a consideration of a design review recommendation to allow the construction of a 2,999 square feet, 2-story single-family residence with an attached 510 square feet, 2-car garage, and detached 652 square feet accessory dwelling unit on an existing 12,424 square feet undeveloped parcel associated with a hearing level coastal development permit CUP. The project involves the removal of one significant sized tree and only minor grading. The ADU is a ministerial project that does not require review by the CDRC. The CDRC will not render a decision, but will make a recommendation regarding the project's compliance with design review standards. A public hearing on the DR permit and CUP will take place after October 12th. The project is appealable to the California Coastal Commission, and the application is deemed complete as of September 12th. And the project planner is Lynn over here. With that said, now we'll open it up, or we'll hand it over to the owner or the applicants to talk about the project.
Okay, and, Karen Freeman and, Raphael are on the call. So please unmute yourself and begin your presentation. I have your presentation here. I'm going to download it for you. So just bear with me for a second. Yeah, the internet's a little slow today, so just keep it, okay.
Yeah.
That's normal?
Well, with that said, should we just, should we let Aaron and Raphael start without the presentation material, or?
It shouldn't take more than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So let's just wait for this. I think it's pretty comprehensive, and yeah, so it'll be better if they can rely on this presentation.
We can't see the screen. Is it telling you it's taking an hour or something? Everyone's laughing.
Oh, no. It's 30 seconds more, and I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see this. Yeah. We're almost there.
Okay, well, thank you for having us. Nice to virtually see everyone.
We are almost there. 19 more seconds.
So we have our submittal documents, and then we also put together a brief presentation that we think highlight some of our design ideas that we wanted to go over with you.
Here we go. We have the presentation on the space right now. So Karen and Mateo, please go over the project with us and start your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Glenn.
Okay, great. Can everybody hear me? This is Raphael speaking.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again for having us. We're happy to be here, and thank you for accommodating us virtually for this meeting today. So we've been working on this project with the Huards for around a year now. And as Karen mentioned, we just wanted to go through some of the highlights of the project, including the site design, the landscape design, and then some of the architectural features that we're using on the project. Next slide, please. So as already mentioned, we're proposing a 2-story single-family home with an attached garage and the detached ADU. Next slide, please. And actually, you could go ahead and keep going, Glenn. We're just gonna jump right into the project. Yeah, right here on the site design. So starting with the site design, once we figured out the setbacks, we decided that we wanted to try and front the project along the front yard setback, so align all the primary structures along the front, and taking into consideration some of the trees on the front and trying to stay off of those drip lines. And then in doing so, it left us some additional space in the back where we're proposing some decks for the primary home and the ADU that stay within the setbacks, but also giving a little bit of an additional buffer space to the required 30-foot intermittent creek buffer in the backyard. Next slide, please. And so one of the really important things within the site design for us was really just getting the project sited the right way. And so ultimately we've decided on this U-shaped siding that you can see here, and that created a primary gathering space within that courtyard. And then on the northern face, or the northern facade of the primary home, and the western facade of the ADU, we added some decks, and so those give a little more intimate private gathering spaces. We could keep going. And so orientation also played a big part in our siting, and so we wanted to really try and take advantage of any ocean views that we can get. We're surrounded by quite a few trees, but we're able to use the roof deck for the proposed garage to set up some nice views, or a nice view corridor of the ocean towards the northwest of the site. Next slide, please. And so getting into the landscape design, our goal with the landscape design was, first to enhance the site, or enhance what we had already set up within the site design, and then, further blend the architecture into the site. And so we started off using low water use and non-invasive species within the planting plan to soften the edges around the architecture, and kind of making it so that way, as someone moves around the site, these planting beds are kind of really hugging you and guiding you between the different spaces. And the plants were also chosen to provide a mix of seasonal blooms and year-round foliage. And additionally, we're also adding 2 new trees to the site. Next slide, please. And so the fencing was also a important element to us within the site design. And so we're using the fencing as an opportunity to further embed this project into the site rather than using fencing to close it off entirely. And so we're doing this partially by borrowing materials from the architecture and using similar finishes, to create an extension of the architecture within the landscape. And so the fencing for us is providing two important functions, and one of those being in how we're staggering and offsetting them from the home itself. They create more depth within the primary facade and help to visually break down the scale of the project. And second, they help to articulate the primary circulation paths within the site and gently guide users throughout the site along the permeable and semi-permeable pathways that we've established. Next slide, please. And around us, there's only a handful of homes in the vicinity, and together they're a pretty eclectic bunch of architectural styles and scale. And so we think that our proposal actually kind of fits squarely in the middle at 2 stories and being a modern design. And so in this way, with regards to the context, we actually think that we fit quite nicely into this area. Next slide, please. And lastly, just a little bit about articulation and some of the architectural features that we're using on this project. And so for this slide, we're borrowing pictures from another project of ours that used similar treatments to articulate the design. And so we're primarily using the awnings, natural materials such as the wood siding, inset decks, and glazing. And so using the inset decks, such as the one pictured on the right, we're able to carve a little bit of space out of the facade, and this creates a little bit of visual relief and also a kind of comfortable space to hang out in. And then pictured on the left, you can see sort of these big glass sliding doors. And so we're using these at our inset decks and then at other walls along the courtyard in the rear to kind of just, to allow you to just fully open up your house whenever you want to the landscape and really kind of just make the landscape an extension of the interior space. And then lastly, you can kind of see in the picture the metal awning. And so we're using those primarily along the southern facade of the project to articulate and add some depth to the facade, but also enhance the solar shading along this, along that elevation. And we can keep going, but with that, I'm gonna hand it off to Karen and she'll talk a little bit about Connect Homes. Thank you.
Karen, you're on mute. Or let me have to unmute her.
Yeah, let me check here to see why she's on it. Hey Karen, I've sent you a request.
Sorry, that's my, you think I would be good at this after 2 years of doing virtual stuff. So I apologize. So we just wanted to give you a quick, a little bit of background about our firm, Connect Homes, just because we are providing factory built designed homes, which is a little bit different than some of the custom traditional architecture that you're seeing. Because we're providing prefabricated modular buildings, we have a little bit, our design options are a little bit limited when it comes to articulation, but it does allow us to create many benefits for the environment, for the community, and for homeowners. And we feel these are worth noting. We don't want them to be overlooked. So Raphael and I come from Connect Homes. We're a design firm that's based in Southern California. We have a factory in San Bernardino where we build our modular homes, and then these are shipped predominantly through California. We do have some projects in other states. We can go to the next slide. So why would you build with Connect Homes and not traditional architecture? There are several advantages, we believe. We're able to build very efficient energy efficient homes where we build in a controlled factory environment, which means that our build quality is monitored and regulated. Our homes arrive to the site 90% complete, which means there's less time and less disturbance at the site. I think the homeowners who spoke at the last, if I'm allowed to talk about the last presentation, would be happy to hear that we'll be on site with much less construction for less time. We're able to provide a factory budget and a schedule for homeowners that's set and isn't an unknown factor. We can keep going. So we've been working in California for quite a while. We're fairly well received for our designs. We can keep going. Sustainability is a hugely important issue for our company. All of our homes are designed with the highest level of energy efficiency as our standard. We use less resources and provide significant energy savings with our homes. Can keep going. Compared to, you're sort of half and half. So compared to traditional buildings, our factory is able to create great savings in construction waste materials due to how efficiently we build. So if you'll see here, we cut waste by 75%, which we think is pretty good. And then again, we're on site for much less time. We essentially bring our modules to the site takes about 2 days to install, and then we're on site for just a few weeks to a few months. So we just want to emphasize, I think we can move back to our submission documents and answer any specific questions we have about the project. I know there was talk at the beginning of this presentation about design regulations. So we are bringing pre-designed modules to the site, and we've spent a lot of time really focusing on what we think is a cohesive, really thoughtful design that we've spent working into the site. And we've worked with the Wards for the last year, really working with them to design their retirement home. So we'd love to hear your comments and see what you'd like to talk to us about.
Thank you very much. And now we're moving into clarification questions from the committee. Like to start?
Sure. I see the dimension on the garage, but not on the garage door. How wide is the garage door, and is there a spec for it?
Go ahead, Rafa.
The garage door would be 16 feet. If we don't have a spec in our sheets, we could provide a spec for that. I just don't know it offhand right now.
We have a standard spec for our doors though. Yeah, I could pull it up now if you need it.
Yeah, we typically want a specification for the doors. So part of the reason that I asked about the size is that you have the parking spots called out as 7 by 15, which is significantly smaller than the requirement in San Mateo County. We require 171 square feet, which is typically 8 by 19. 9 by 19. So it doesn't seem to me that the size of door that you have is going to allow for meeting the parking requirement. Although it does appear that the garage provides enough space, but the passageway into it does not. So that's part of what's driving that question.
We can provide that spec. I know that our door is 16 feet wide.
Okay, and is there, do you guys have options for a pair of doors or for wider doors? Since 16 feet will not really comport with the parking requirement here.
So I'm sorry, you're saying 16 feet does not comply?
No, so the required parking spots here are 9 by 19, or I think technically zoning is 171 square feet, and there's language about it being the usable proportion, so you might be able, I'm not sure, Glenn can probably speak to this better than me, to go to 8.5 by 20 or something like that, but 7 by 15 is way under what the requirement is.
They probably have sufficient internal space for parking to provide 2 9 by 19, but we just need like specifications, and we want to make sure like all the space is usable.
It doesn't.
it's not obstructed by like any cabinets or like other storage
Yeah.
units. So that's one clarification we need from the project.
Yeah, and so the space to me doesn't seem usable with a 16-foot door because you couldn't get into both spots where one car was there. I don't see how the second car would get there. So do the doors that you provide, do you have options for double doors or do you only have single doors? And if you have single doors, do you have wider ones?
We can provide options for a different door.
And then what's the profile on the corrugated metal siding? Is it the sort of standard agricultural curved corrugation, or it looked like it was maybe a more angular corrugation?
Is, let me just see if we show it on our material sheet. We don't show the profile on
That's why it looks
6.0.
like there's,
It-
yeah, the white
Mhm.
corrugated siding that's called out there, is that what's the side profile, what's the side view look like of that? Is it angular or is it curved? Or
It is-
changed?
It is more of an angular profile. You can see you can't really see the profile in up in the top left, of course, but it's angular. So the sort of the thinner bands are going to be recessed, maybe about 1 inch or 2, and then maybe about an inch, and then the sort of wider bands are the angular part that's kind of protruding out, the corrugated part. We could
Can
we
pull
could
up a
provide
detail.
maybe a detail, we can find one, can show that.
I think I understand. I just wanted to sort of hear from you what it was. Sometimes we see the more kind of vernacular agricultural curved corrugation in structures around here. And then I think actually there's one across the street that maybe uses something like what you have going in there. And the black hardy siding, is that just above the window panels? Is that the only place where that's located? That's the only place where I was able to find it.
Yeah, so that's right, and it's sort of in this elevation, you can see it above the window treatments at level 2, and then at level 1 it's going to be below the window treatments,
Mm-hmm.
and those are the only places.
Okay, and the verticals which are shown on the elevations, for example, on the east elevation on sheet DR 3.1, those are like battens or transitions where metal panels meet the next metal panel, metal battens or something? Is that correct?
That's right. You're talking about the metal trim pieces. They,
Yeah, all the little individual vertical lines there.
Yeah, and that's correct, and actually these would, as the material sheet indicated, these are painted to match the siding, so when they're actually installed, they're much more low profile than they actually kind of show up as in these elevations. So those are usually, they usually kind of just blend in with the facade a little more than it seems in these black and white drawings.
I understand that. I guess I'm wondering, particularly looking at the east facade, what's driving their placement, because sometimes they seem much closer together than I would anticipate at a panel transition. It looks like you always have them where you have a window, is that correct? But then there's a few locations where they're quite close to each other. What's driving that?
they're always at windows, and then they're always at the location where our modular steel is.
Okay. That's all the clarifying questions I have. Mark, do you want to-
Yeah, just one, the agenda describes the house as being 2,999 square feet. On page 5, ER 1.1, it shows 3,200 square feet. The garage, the agenda is 510. The garage in DR 1 shows 520. They use size. In the agenda is bigger than what's shown on the plans there. So I'm just curious, did we, is it agenda description written off of a different set of plans or what's the discrepancy with that square footage?
Yeah, so there's, so I can speak to that a little bit, and, the project team may, correct me if, or try me if you want to add additional information. So when the county look at, square footage, when we write description, we look at like it's kind of different from like how we calculate, the square footage according to our zoning regulations. It's kind of descriptive and, it just eliminates, the square footage of like that or the openings, even though covered, we still limit that. So there's always, it's quite normal that we see discrepancies between the project description and actual project. So that happens, quite often. It's not an issue, but it's like a current situation we have right now, but, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's all the questions we have. So the next, so now we'll open up the public comment. Do that after.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so we're here, we're now opening public comment for item number 1. No public correspondence. Oh, sorry, number 2. And, no public correspondence was received for this project prior to this meeting. And now for those, attending the meeting in person, speaker forms are available, on the rear table or on the rear wall. Please provide me with your speaker position immediately. For those on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to raise your hand to speak on this agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Please provide your speaker form, raise your hand, or press *9 on your device immediately, and late speaker requests will not be accepted. When you hear your name or last 4 digits of your phone number called, I prompt you to come up to the front or unmute your account that inform that you may begin speaking. I will then ask you to state your name for the record. For those joining by phone, pressing *6 will mute or unmute your microphone. And, I don't have any speaker form for this item. And I don't see any raised hand. I'll just provide, a few, 5 more seconds, 10 more seconds for people to raise their hand or submit their, speakers to the. Okay, I see no more raised hands here, and, Mark, please indicate if you'd like to close public comment for item 2.
Yes.
Okay, okay, public comment session closed, and now we're, moving to CDRC discussion session.
I guess I can start with, I say that, I just in general, I thought this is a very, very nice design. It is a prefab home, so, we talked about this earlier, how, there may be some constraints in terms of what could possibly be, adjusted here. I guess I'll just add in one more comment here. I did feel that one of the visuals that were presented in the project plan, honestly threw me off a little bit. They were more in line with stock images and didn't look like they blended in as well to the person I believe as they would. But as you sort of dig into the materials a little bit more, and look at the plantings, it definitely, maybe put some of those concerns out there. That said, I think generally on the coast, a sort of squarish block home isn't something that, it's something that the committee has commented on in the past. With that said, I am supportive of the design, as shown now. So I'll just leave it at that. I think there's some sort of smaller items to discuss, but I'll hand it over to Rebecca.
Okay. I just think it's a really attractive design, and there's a lot that I like about it. I do have some concerns about its meeting the design guidelines in a few particular areas. One is that, so this is the thing we've discussed before, the guidelines don't allow projects which have entirely flat roofs. I think that that's a thing which the committee has largely been willing to overlook in recent years as we're working on a revision of the guidelines to be friendlier towards modern architecture. And I think that the profile of the project is really appropriate and, even kind of conservative in terms of the height limit that you could have gone up to. I don't see though, I guess I should have asked this during qualifying, clarifying questions, but is the project, compliant with the daylight plane, or is it seeking compliance through the facade articulation method?
Are there any exceptions being requested?
So there are two options. One is one is facade articulation, the other one is daylight plane. And now for this one, I think they're seeking facade articulation or.
So we're not compliant with daylight.
I'm not sure because there's no demonstration of daylight plane compliance on the elevation plans. So we will need to defer that question to the project team to see if they have done any analysis on this or they're pursuing a daylight or the facade articulation compliance.
Yeah, then isn't that a requirement to deem a project complete for review where it's done to us?
For facade articulation is kind of related to the design guidelines, so at the planning level, because it's a modern home. And they have done some good faith effort to add like articulation, like the awnings and also like outside patios. So it's not like objective standard for us. So it's kind of related to design review. So if the design committee can review it and provide comments accordingly, that will help us understand the compliance with the facade.
So it would be helpful to the applicant if you have done any analysis, if the project does comply with the daylight plan standards, do you know?
Yeah, if you go just down one slide to the next sheet, that's where we have our demonstration of the daylight plane. And so on on the southern elevation where we're in the clear, I believe, it's on the rear elevation. Actually, let me see.
Rear elevation, is it this one?
Yeah, well, you know what, that was my apologies. I'm actually looking at the side yards. It was on sheet 11 though, where you can see the demonstration of the daylight plane. So yeah, if you could zoom into that area or even on the east elevation, I think this is the one where elevation 2, we're encroaching it a little bit there. And I believe on the elevation below, we're actually okay.
The awning projects, but I think that the awning is permitted to project. I know the beams are permitted to project, so. And then on elevation 2, I mean, I could let that slide, but it is a shame that you guys are projecting into that slightly because I definitely do not think the project complies with the facade articulation method. And in fact, even if you comply with the daylight plane, you're still supposed to provide wall articulation, which I think you've done a really nice job of on the south facade and at the in-cut decks, and the awnings help with that. The east elevation is the one that is most problematic for me, as it's really a 2-story box and doesn't have any kind of articulation, doesn't have primary and secondary roof forms, doesn't have any insetting of the second floor above the first floor. And yeah, basically doesn't comport with the guidelines in a number of ways. I think that at the front and rear of the property, there's plenty of articulation provided. I know we're not really going to be talking about the ADU today, which of course doesn't really have any articulation either, but I think comes from our review. The other, maybe this is a smaller order. I would say that's kind of my primary issue with the project right now is the absence of sufficient articulation, especially on the east, and just the overall boxiness of the project. And then I have a little bit of concern about the amount of the white metal siding. I think having looked at the images that you provided, you know, and the guidelines request natural, warm, muted colors. And I personally, I like white houses, but I do think that there's a brightness, and that since you have this third material, which is the black hardy, I just wonder if there would be a way to use more of that in some places to help soften, or to use more of the wood siding to soften. Again, I don't really have any concerns about the front facade. I think that that's nicely articulated. If you look at the courtyard perspective on page 15, you really only see one material from that vantage point. And I think that doesn't really meet the guideline for the more natural muted colors, and also kind of doesn't break down the mass, and like utilizing additional materials and some of those other facades would help to break down the massing more. I think the northwest perspective, the entry block, and the southwest perspective all seem lovely and successful. But those are my concerns with the project in terms of this.
Yeah, so your point about the perspective, there's such a nice balance with the other perspectives, with the mixed materials, with the siding, the wood siding. That said, just as far as the facade articulation, I mean, I do feel the project is staying a decent amount underneath the, you know, the limit. And in a way that's sort of a modern, or I feel in line with the design of a modern building. So, yeah, I mean, our role is to interpret the design guidelines, but I do feel that, you know, there's some room for us under that, you know, does this house, add to the eclecticness of the community? And, you know, I feel like I would be more to that, the straight.
Well, let me ask the project team this, and I'm also looking for the view of the east side, because I'm interested in hearing from the project team if you have ideas about ways you could address that east side. And if you look just at the cover sheets, you can see the 3D view gives you a little bit of a sense of the east side, and it looks like the materiality changes right down the middle there, and is it wood on the bottom and metal siding above?
Yes.
And what's the transition like when you typically in my own projects, I try to avoid a transition of material that's not happening at an inside corner, or that's just happening in plane. Is there some kind of detail where those two things meet, or are they just flush with one another? Does the metal extend out over the wood? What's that transition look like?
They come together, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, with like a corner edging cap that we have there. So it's sort of like a angular metal trim.
That's right. We have a trim piece at the corner.
So I'm just asking because I think often when we look at projects where, and I know with a prefab project, it's harder than with a standard framing project, say, hey, you know, push or pull this a little bit. So there's often the second thing we look at is like, well, how can we apply materials to help break down that sense of boxiness? So I see that you're already doing that, but I have to say that I actually, not related to the guidelines, but just personally, it bothers me a little bit when materials just change right in plane like that. It kind of makes everything feel very linear and applied, so that and that's a strategy that you're already using. I mean, even if the wood went all the way up that side, it would still be changing at the outside corner, so it still feels kind of applied to me. So I wonder if there are strategies like the in-cut balconies that you might be able to deploy on that side, or like the awnings. And then also, it looks like there's a piece of wall which extends to I assume provide some privacy for the back deck off of the kitchen. But that if that wall wasn't there, or if that wall changed to something more like an open lattice, then that side would have some articulation. So, yeah, I guess I want to throw it back to the project team and see if you have suggestions about how you think that you could bring that side of the project better into accord with the guideline for articulation.
Yeah, I understand your point. I think at one point we agreed and we tried to not switch from wood to metal to wood because we agreed. We thought it did look more applied. I think that the east facade is probably one of the more challenging. It had the least articulation, and it also did end up being where we had some mechanical pieces that we needed to place. So it's a fair point. I don't think that we can place any sort of inset elements there, but we can definitely look at the materiality and try to refine that. We are able to put, let me look at the windows there. We are definitely able to put any kind of awnings if that makes sense, but we would look at that. We are also able to add any kind of the same sort of consideration we're doing with the landscape as far as.
There, can you start again from the beginning of your response? We lost you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you catch any of that?
Just that the east facade is the most challenging, maybe you said, and that's what I
Sure.
lost.
So I think that's a fair point, and we did, when we were looking at the materiality overall, we actually agreed and came up with the idea that we wouldn't go from wood to metal to wood again. So I think we agree with you that we don't necessarily want to, it feels more applied when we do that. So we can definitely look at the materiality on that facade. We wouldn't be able to add any kind of inset area there, but we could look at the window locations and see if any kind of awning or lattice work would make sense. We could also look at the side yard there and see if any of the landscape elements that if we could carry through any of the landscape area elements that we've added in the front or on the side would work there as well. So I think there are opportunities to treat that the same way that we've treated the south elevation.
Is there any opportunity, I guess you just said no, but I see that you have, I think the in-cut balcony that you have at the front entry and the in-cut balcony that you have in the kitchen, are both really successful. And I wonder if there would be a possibility to add that, say, at the office or somewhere on the second floor in order to give us a little push and pull.
Sure. So those kind of moves are pretty difficult for these modules. We would be able to add something site built on the exterior that could potentially have the same effect.
And do you have any suggestions of what that will be?
Yeah, let's just look at this. Sorry, let me pull it up on my screen so it's a little bit easier for me to see. So we could add, it looks like we're pretty close to the setback there.
I think we would be, You're allowed to go into the setback as long as the rest of the.
An architectural feature is going to go into the setback, that's true, although, I mean, on the east side there, there's not a lot of reason to add kind of this type of shade device that they have on the front. And I don't think that that would. be sufficient for me. What about the wall at the back patio off the kitchen? Does that need to be there? Does that need to be a solid wall?
We could move that right now. That's actually kind of functioning as an area, sort of like a trash receptacle, so screening it from the road. It's not entirely solid. It's like, I think about like 50%. It's a similar design to the fence in the front, so the slats are spaced at like a 50%. So you can kind of see through it still. And I think maybe we could use an element like that to create a little more articulation along this facade. We can also, we could adjust that a little. I mean, as Karen mentioned, we're pretty close to the setback, so I don't know if even at level 1, we have a guest bedroom in the corner there on the bottom right corner, and I don't know if we could even get like a kind of a proper deck or something in there.
The piece of wall that I'm talking about is if you look at DR 2.1, the inset deck off of the kitchen has a piece of wall to the right of it. Is that the wall that you're talking about? That's the wall that I'm talking about.
Oh, we're talking about different walls. Yes. Sorry. So what was your question about this wall?
Need to be there? Does that wall need to be opaque? Could it be something more like a screen?
Oh, you're saying at the inset deck. I see.
Yeah, if that wall were not there, then we would have some articulation. I see that wall is obviously, yeah, it may be supporting, although I think that would, I don't know what your structural engineering is like, it would be a span that could be cantilevered. Or even if it were, like the metal screens or out of wood, but screen or something that had some transparency, that would lighten it up, that would then make the second floor feel almost more like it was a little floating there, and that would introduce the articulation that we need. And then, go ahead.
That's a wall that we could possibly, so we do have structure in there, primarily kind of at the top of that wall, there's a column.
Column at the outside corner.
Yeah, and so we could look into opening that up to kind of add that depth from the on that facade.
Becomes just a column.
Yeah, so you would see the column, but then yeah, the rest would just, the corner would turn more in line with where the sliding door and windows are.
And what's the material? Let me go back to the 3D. What's the material on the back wall of the kitchen? Is it the white siding again?
So wherever we have the inset deck is wood, so that might actually make sense as far as a way to continue the wood for us to wrap that corner onto the east facade.
And then would you wrap with the whole east facade be wood then, or you would still break it at the second floor way it is now? Actually, it looks like you have like the fencing detail sort of coming off the sides. You're screening. If it was just the column or if there was some fencing there that would be built in useful articulation.
I missed that last part, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just noticing on the rendering that you have this horizontal fencing.
Yes, I think that's the wall. I think that's the wall we thought you were talking about, but yeah. Did I lose you?
I think we broke up a bit. I don't know if you can still hear us, but yeah, I think there is potential to open up at that. Did we lose you entirely?
Okay, we're back. We just got disconnected for 5 seconds. Can you hear us
Okay.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you, sorry. So I think there is potential to open up at that back inset deck. And then if you'd like us to look at wrapping the wood from the inset deck over to the east facade, so that makes more sense.
Yeah, I think if we opened that side up and we wrapped the wood around that outside corner, that would do a lot for me. And then if we also condition the parking, either having an 18-foot door or having two
doors.
or having 2 doors, yeah, so that it would be possible to get the San Mateo compliant parking. Not just to have the floor space for it, but for it to be accessible, have an accessible path of travel in for the cars. Then I think we would have addressed most of my concerns. I still have some concern from the rear about everything being white from that courtyard view. I don't know if you guys have thoughts about how to address that.
So I guess we were thinking that there is wood at the inset deck and then there's wood on the ADU, but you would like to see more wood or something.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see more wood. I'm at the courtyard perspective. I certainly, I don't want to orient myself. In the courtyard perspective that's shown on the upper left-hand corner, yeah, the page that we're on, the volume that's protruding back to form the side of the courtyard that has the balcony on it, is that that's the back of the garage that we're looking at?
That's right.
Okay. So then the decking is coming around and the ADU volume is entirely in the white, right?
It's the wood.
So I also want to know how you feel about this. I mean, I have concerns about some of the I don't know if you looked at, checked it already, but there's a black panel with the windows.
Sorry, I don't think either of us can hear you right now. It's very choppy.
I guess what I'm wondering is if keeping with the language of introducing black panels above the windows, or possibly something more than that, if we could introduce more of the darker siding into the back of the garage. Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We could put.
And I don't know if it would be your preference that we work through now where all of this is, or if sometimes I like to just say, to increase the, say by a percentage of 10 or 20% to increase the amount of wood or black siding that I'm trying to not be too prescriptive, but to write the letter in a way such that you have some flexibility with us. The best way the design team wants to address it. I know it's funny, Katie's just retired, but the architect more senior to me who just retired always had a pet peeve about all white projects. Yeah, I think introducing that with some darker siding and then opening up the side of the courtyard of the, sorry, what's your language, the enclosed patio on the back of the kitchen, wrapping the wood around the side and making the garage doors more serviceable.
Yeah, I have those two things, the garage door, it's a 60-foot garage door, where, you know, just there's 9-inch, or the same 9 feet width for parking space. That, that inset rack for first level,
Okay,
you know, opening that up, really just keeping the column and wrapping that with wood.
okay,
Yeah.
and then I think I would just say introducing. Yeah, introducing more wood.
We keep losing you.
Okay, no, I mean, it's tricky because we don't see a lot of articulation in our structure, but
I just don't want it to-
That was all.
To take away from the,
Yeah,
but yeah. If you bring it there.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're with us right now, but
We're back.
yeah, I mean, I think that feels to me like a non gesture that will work for me. I still feel like that facade looks a little industrial, but we have no neighbors here who have any concerns about it. We're well under the height guideline.
Yeah, it's also the
one
corner.
interesting structure, yeah. And right, and the courtyard view is internal to those people. So I think if the east facade gets that level of articulation, then I feel like that would satisfy me.
Okay.
So I think you have sort of heard my concerns. You don't have any additional concerns.
No, I don't. The one about the garage door, I think is that's less tied back to design standard and more about county regulations.
It is more about county regulations. I think we could just say that the garage doors need to provide fully accessible compliant parking spaces, and then let the building department.
Yeah, that's.
Leave it up to the building department to say if that gets you there. I understand there's the cleaner, nice look to having a single door, but I don't think that you're gonna get two compliant spots accessible without widening it or splitting it. But we don't have something like that. And I think we've arrived at the point where we would ask the applicants if they'd like us to proceed to a vote.
Yes,
You wanna make a
unless,
motion?
unless you approved it while we were away, which would,
No, we wouldn't do that without you.
And just to summarize, and also just be clear about the motion, we would be making a motion for approval with 3 conditions. First condition is related around the garage door sizing and kind of requirements. The second would be in regard to that east or the inset deck on the east side, if you will, I guess keeping the column but opening up the part of the wall, this the south of that, but adjacent to that, and then wrapping that with wood. And the third condition is adding, we'll find some language about adding more wood or darker paneling on that courtyard perspective. So those would be the 3 conditions. If you have any questions or clarifications on that motion, let me know.
no questions.
Is the recommendation for approval?
Yes, it's a recommendation that the decision be made by the planning commission.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Rebecca Hicken,
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed, and then this will only be a recommendation. Based on design review guidelines and standards, and, yeah, so the next step is planning commission hearing. And, the planning commission will make a decision on the project, yeah, at a later date. Yeah, so after this meeting, just keep working with me, and I'll, provide more information to you regarding the next step. And also, in the meantime, I would, suggest that you make, address like those conditions or like recommendations from CDRC. So moving forward, we'll be able to like present the most up-to-date information to the planning commission.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Thank you.
Amber.
Thank you.
We're at 4 p.m. I would like to take a break for.
No, how rude.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Karen, and Mateo, and congratulations. Okay, here comes the next project. Okay, so we're switching. So I just need to keep monitoring this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You see that he's all into the natural materials, which is.
Yeah.
Well, the older than-
Times are changing.
Yeah. I remember that. It's a sort of.
Oh, not yet, not yet.
No, no, you gotta take a break.
Representative is going to give a,
Yeah, go.
is going to give out a description or you start.
I'll wait also.
And you have your presentation here on the screen, so, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, all right.
Let's start, we get started on the last application, item number 3.
Okay, so this is, item number 3 is from owner Dean and Patricia Robinson. My apologies if I mispronounced that, and the applicant is Marco Constance. This is file number PLN 2022-00217, and this is at 836 Park Avenue in Moss Beach. This is for a consideration of the design review recommendation to allow the construction of a new detached 1,081 square foot 3-car garage with a second floor 800 square feet accessory dwelling unit on an existing 9,962.6 square feet parcel developed with a 1,054.2 square feet single family residence and an attached 2-car garage. Associated with the hearing level coastal development permit. The ADU is a ministerial project that does not require review by the CDRC. The project involves only minor grading and no tree removal. The CDRC will not render a decision, but will make a recommendation regarding the project's compliance with design review standards. A planning commission public hearing on the DR permit and CDP will take place after October 12th. The project is appealable to the California Coastal Commission. And the application was deemed complete September 12th. And the project planner is planned here. With that said, we'll hand it over to the owner and applicant for a description of the project. Do I have a second?
All right, so as you mentioned, pretty straightforward. A new garage to existing residents, new garage to offset the parking for per the ADU, chapter 22.5, the ADU requirement, parking for the ADU. And for the two daughters who are growing up and now driving. And in the areas, if you know the neighborhood at all, off-street parking is not really an option. So the owners have chosen, Dean and Patricia have chosen to build the garage and use the garage as the parking, as opposed to just putting the ADU straight down on the ground. And hence we're at this point. So the garage is basically a 1,100 square foot garage on a 10,000 square foot lot. The ADU 800 square feet.
I would just add that the
Very simple.
ADU is intended for my mother, who's elderly and would like to live by her granddaughters through her golden years. So
We're not really allowed to talk about the ADU anyway, so, I mean that we, as an architect, I always have a preference to look at the building as a whole, which in this case might actually be advantageous, but we're not really permitted to comment on the ADU in any case.
no worries.
Thank you. Can I ask a question though? So, I saw that the two of the parking spots were listed as replacement parking. So are the existing parking spaces remaining?
The existing
Or
parking
is that
space,
garage being converted into some other use?
That's exactly the question.
Yeah, my understanding is they have converted that garage into a junior ADU for the main residence, right?
We have an application in with the
Yeah.
county for a conversion.
Yeah, so that's
So
actually,
there will not be parking spots in what is garage, so that explains why you're adding so much parking here.
Why is that done as a separate project? Is that typical?
it's not a separate project because this project requires not only the design review permit, but also development permit hearing level. They wanted to start the construction of the JADU conversion early, so because that's only ministerial review, so they decided to separate these two parts just to get the JADU converted like as soon as possible.
So the JDU conversion will be underway and is permitted to take all the required parking for the house?
Yeah, it's permitted to take the required parking because they have sufficient space for uncovered parking spaces.
Okay.
And in the future, after upon approval or construction of the proposed garage, it will provide sufficient parking to operate. So we have looked into that already.
Okay.
Well, didn't you say there's sufficient parking in uncovered spaces?
Yeah, they will be in this area outside of the existing parking space. There's like a cement pad here. And that's where the uncovered parking will be located at.
And Glenn, what is the requirement for providing parking for the ADU?
The requirement for parking for ADU that's one covered or uncovered parking. And for conversions, they're allowed to remove the existing parking spaces and provide uncovered parking spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's my understanding that parking isn't required as well, if it's within a certain distance of a public.
yes, there are some exemptions, available. Like the distance to the nearest transit station. And yeah, so that's one of the criteria we can use, and I cannot fully recall what's the distance between this property and the nearest transit station.
Yeah.
But
less than a quarter mile.
okay.
So you would qualify for the
Yeah.
exemption?
This is on, this is a park, I mean, I'm not familiar here, Los Baños is right down in, it joins up the airport, is a bus stop right there.
Yeah, so yeah, so even we don't have the waiver or the exemption, parking exemption, it will still be required. So we look into this and I had some discussion regarding the parking for this.
I just, well, maybe a question and comment, so thanks for doing story polls, I think that was really, a nice touch, but, you know, the neighbors could have an opportunity to look at it and comment, on that. I am looking at the picture of the story polls, though, yeah, I don't know if the staff can comment, though, isn't the yellow or the kind of the orange banding supposed to be around or indicate where the structure is gonna be? It seems a little incomplete.
Is are the story pole just the garage and not the ADU? Is that-
Yeah, the story poles represent where the garage footprint is and then the height of the garage.
Mhm.
Oh, not the height of it,
Mhm.
Correct.
so.
So they're just like the first level for the garage.
Right, 'cause the
The
ADU
ADU is not demonstrated because that's not required.
And then I thought I saw the new, I assume new driveway, it's listed as existing or existing grade somewhere. It's a new driveway, right? Or
So there'll be a new driveway.
There's a
So
new
if you're looking at
driveway,
the
yes.
site plan, the second driveway is the new one and then the existing driveway
Yeah.
is also drawn in that site plan. So that's probably
Okay.
what you're getting mixed up on.
Yeah.
I
So we're
think
gonna get
it's
the
something
slope.
around the existing slope. So, and the new driveway is at a proposed 17% slope.
It's less.
Where? So I'm looking at your sheet C5, 6.0 shows 17% slope with an impermeable driveway surface.
C5,
C5, I don't see.
C5 is all the way down the bottom. Yeah, that one. So basically, the existing, that shouldn't even be on there. I'm still tearing my hair out about it with him.
Okay, I think it was that
The
existing.
top one is
Yeah.
existing driveway.
Yeah,
Oh, that's existing.
But the
yeah,
bottom
that's
one is-
existing, that's, yeah,
It shows a 17%.
yeah, that's right, it's, yeah. Actually, yes, once, yeah, that's right, the natural was 10%, but once they had to deal with all this, we dropped it.
And so is the area of asphalt pavement there because Public Works is requiring it? Yeah.
This is public works requiring all this, this is permeable.
Mhm.
With that slope, though, I believe that that's gonna be a challenge in terms of, yeah, I thought it was above 5 or 10%. So,
5 technically, I mean, sometimes you can push it, but in some jurisdictions, what they do, I don't think San Mateo County does this, but they'll give you, so I don't know if you, well, let me step back just to be asking questions. Is this permeable? Because if it were not permeable, would you be over your own permeable cover?
No, we wanted everything permeable anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's gonna function as, permeable at 17%. Typically, permeable paving doesn't really function above 5%. Pervious concrete maybe will function as pervious up to about 10%. So you can have it, and you can have a look if it's like the turf, is it the turfcrete pavers that you're using?
Yeah,
So
it's
they'll still look
exactly.
like that, but there will still be.
There's a picture of them if you go down to page
The one
9.
page.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's basically,
you still get that more natural look of
Yeah.
that paver style, but if you install those at 17%, there's still gonna be a lot of runoff off of them because they're too steep to really function, as pervious. But if you're not doing it in order to meet your coverage limit, then, I mean, it's fine to do, it's just, you're not gonna get 100% water infiltrating at that slope. But I will say it for comment, because I think that was. That, and in terms of, clarifying questions, I guess, this should be in here somewhere, and I should have it, but, what's the total FAR with just with the addition of the new garage?
oh, I just have to, can we go up?
Do we know that?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
So here we go.
Page, yeah.
So.
So you-
Proposed, all right, you're at 44%, so you're still
Yeah.
at 100, okay. That's it for me.
yeah, I mean, I thought it was a creative way, like, I guess the garage square footage, count against it because we're taking the budget.
Well, you will, I mean, the garage counts to FAR, is it in here? Yeah, it's in here.
Yeah.
Full garage,
The full garage
Yeah.
counts to floor area ratio because garages count.
even if they use a budget.
Yeah, I think it is,
Yeah, it's
you
kind
count
of
again.
for both the lot coverage and what area, if you get any like, exemptions or like waivers from the ADU policies.
Okay.
Yeah, because, yeah, the nature of the design, so,
Yeah, it's-
yeah, went through that discussion, so. Yeah, they're all, they both have to be counted.
Okay, any other clarifying questions?
No, just, well, the first one, you asked it about the respecting the new garage.
Mhm.
The other one was about the story walls and that, so that's all I had questions. Okay, I think we can open it to public comment.
Okay, now we're opening up for public comments, for item number 3, no public correspondence was received, for this project prior to this hearing. For those attending this meeting in person, speaker forms available on your table, and for those on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to indicate your desire to speak. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to, indicate your desire to speak. Please, provide me with your speaker's request, immediately, and late speaker request will not be accepted. When you hear your name or last 4 digits of your phone number called, I'll prompt you to come to the front or unmute your account and begin speaking. Okay. Let's see if we have any raised hands here in this meeting. I don't see any raised hands and I haven't received any speakers slip. So just a few more seconds. If you like to speak on this item, please raise your hand or unmute your account. I still don't see any public, still don't see any speakers requests. So Mark, please indicate if you'd like to close public comment.
Yes, let's close the public comment.
Okay, great. Now we're moving to the committee discussions.
You know, I did realize I had one more question based on our.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know we're not. Probably not ADUs necessarily, but given the fact that, you know, it's still, the garage still counts for the square footage. And maybe the fact that you may have an elderly person staying there, you consider just building the garage and the ADU next to each other, because it seems like you have.
Yeah, then we go over LC lot coverage.
Oh, yeah, so
Yeah.
so the lot coverage, the garage, basically, the lot coverage of the garage.
Is, or the coverage of the ADU is offset by the garage.
Yeah.
Literally, if you want, you know.
Okay, so it doesn't seem like it factors into the lot coverage of the ADU size.
Well,
But yes,
you would be permitted-
we definitely thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, so if you didn't have an ADU, how big of a garage would you be allowed to build without exceeding your lot coverage?
I haven't got that, I mean, I should check that. Be interesting, but
I think the biggest concern with probably accessibility, that's one of the concerns, is on the second floor, and yeah, and they could take advantage from that 800 square foot exception. So it's
yeah,
something we're considering, and or alternatively, you may like propose the elevator inside, just our latest suggestions.
I think my concern is that, it feels like without the ADU, the garage wouldn't be allowable, right?
that's
You're allowed 800 extra square feet or nothing within the zoning shall prohibit the development of an 800 square foot ADU. We're not supposed to talk about the ADU anyway, but if we're just looking at the garage without the ADU, would it go to lot coverage numbers? It seems to me.
no, it's 10,000 square foot lot.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
so
only a 2,000 square foot house, 10,000 square foot lot, it's, you could easily.
So, but you're saying if you put them side by side, you would be over the lot.
You would be
coverage
over,
numbers. But how is that?
The
Because the
ADU
ADU is
doesn't count as
exempted.
The ADU, oh yeah, so you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
We actually, we couldn't put that in. Just, you know, there's
It's
just
not-
few parameters, yeah, you couldn't move around. Yeah. And actually, I think it might have been over impermeable,
Mhm.
by doing that.
I think, well, again, I think the ADU has a lot of, there's a lot of rooms that doesn't necessarily count against.
Right.
Yeah, it's just, there's just a couple things, because if that was an available option, then when, you know, it's probably more advantageous for like, accessible living, but, in addition to that, you know, I guess, you know, less of a concern for neighbors, but given that, this is what you propose, and we'll review there.
There, I don't know if you've gone through the plan, but there is an elevator in it.
Oh, is that what this
Yeah.
is with the, okay, I was wondering what it
Yeah.
was.
Well, and we have to have the egress, so. we have to have the stairs.
I guess the issue that I'm having is that 1,081 square feet is a really large garage.
3 cars.
And it's 3 cars, but one of them is tandem, the one which is shown as the ADU one would have to get past one of the immersed spots. So the spot which is actually being provided for the ADU, which I don't think is actually required, because I think it's close enough to public transit, you're not required into that spot, is also not very accessible. And then there's a whole other maybe 200 square feet, which I guess is serving the elevator, but it feels like it's really pushing the exceptions that the ADU is granted in order to gain a whole lot of garage development. And the garage half this size would provide you the replacement parking, that you want for your own use. I don't know, I'm just struggling with a whole other, 500 square feet, which feels like it's kind of just entry to the ADU or extra ADU, and then there's this a fairly large deck, which is serving the ADU, and if we were looking at the whole project together, I mean, the deck is providing some articulation and some stepping in on the second floor, which are all things that I like, but it feels like this is not, just an 800 square foot ADU. It feels like this is a new structure, which actually dwarfs the existing structure. And I'm struggling because we're not supposed to talk about the ADU with how to talk about it, because if we didn't talk about the ADU and we were only talking about the garage, then it's just a huge unarticulated box that I wouldn't be inclined to approve.
The garage itself.
Garage itself. And it's also set up at this 17% slope, where it looks like you're adding a retaining wall and creating a little bit of a river courtyard in the back anyway. I wonder why it needs to be up so high. It seems like if it is a garage, that it could be cut into the hillside, or that courtyard, it could be a little bit deeper, that would allow the previous paving to actually.
Because there's a garage, can't go into the setback.
No, I don't mean into the setback, I mean the elevation, the garage with a 17% slope. Let me find
I think
that.
it's far more excavation, right? So what you need back is.
Yeah.
I think the suggestion is maybe just lower the entry elevation here at the bridge form, so you can just reduce the slope here and also.
It's the next one, it's the next one down.
Lower the reach elevation.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm not permitted to say lower the bridge elevation,
Yeah.
because we're not talking about the ADU. But what's the height of the garage? What's the floor to ceiling height in there?
Yeah, we could definitely talk about this.
We're going from 119
Here you go.
to 127, so it's only about 8'10". The garage, but if the garage started a foot lower and if the plate height were just at 8 foot, and that would bring down the massing considerably.
So what's the ceiling? The ceiling.
I think it's 8'9" and 7.
It's not excessive.
No, it's not excessive. And the overall height of the whole structure is, I think, still underneath the, that's not functioning very well. Underneath. Yeah, it's underneath 26, actually 28 feet is your allowance. You guys have 26 through reference a bunch of times on your drawings, so.
Yeah.
The overall structure is
As low as we could.
is below. But it just seems like a massive garage to me that isn't really all functioning very well as a garage.
Glenn, we are allowed to have 2 replacement parking spaces to, because of our JU situation, and 1 additional space for our tenant who is my elderly mother. So that is a permissible allocation for our parking, isn't that correct?
So we don't prohibit like like more than like certain number of parking, we don't have any prohibition in our own regulations. However, like in the design process, we may look at the design guidelines and like what's necessary at the same time and come up with like reasonable determination or recommendations.
Yeah.
Sure.
And we do discourage tandem parking, so the car having to go in from the other side. If the driveway were on the same side as your existing driveway, then the same floor area that you have would allow for 3 spots that are one tandem.
So in our neighborhood, we are in a coastal area with a lot of walkers and not very, I would say, there's not a lot of options for off-street parking. So we elected to create off-street parking for the betterment of our community and the walkers in our community. So I thought maybe you would like to know that perspective.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I have no problem with there being 3 spots provided. I think that there would be a more functional way to provide 3 spots if the driveway were oriented perpendicular to how it is now. I'm also just seeing about 250 roughly square feet of the garage that isn't dedicated to parking, which looks like it's, I guess, dedicated as entry to the ADU. Is that right? Since that's where the garage is.
There's an elevator space as well.
I mean, you are allowed 150 square feet of dedicated ADU entry, so in fact, that would fly better with me if that were defined as such, because it feels like that space may be intended to be used as part of the ADU. And if that's the case, then it would be great to see it claimed as part of the dedicated entry, because what it looks like to me as I look at it is that it just feels like it's really pressing, all of the exemptions which are allowed for ADUs, it seems to be pushing, so it's not just an ADU that's 800 square feet, it's an ADU that's 800 square feet and raised up really high and with this very large deck and with this very large entry area.
All within guidelines.
Yeah, and Rebecca, just to mention one thing, regarding the ingress and egress allowance for ADUs, I believe it can only be applied to JADUs. So here I'm checking the code here, so I recently reviewed like the JADU project. We allowed a 150 ingress and egress area for a JADU, but for ADU, and I'm almost positive that we don't have the allowance for ADU. ADU cannot obtain 100 additional square footage through that exception.
There's no way to get that.
The floor area coverages of the ADU is, that's not a lot of the garage space. But.
Well, I mean, they have a big lot, so they do have the room for it. I just, if we're looking at the garage and we're not speaking about the ADU, then we're looking at an 1,100 square foot unarticulated box.
If there is articulation, I know we're not supposed to talk about the ADU, but it's articulated, like you mentioned earlier with the ADU on top, so.
And the deck.
You know, like we've got all the pictures over here, we can't really just think about it as a box that sits there, because it's not just that.
Yes, so if we were to be talking about the ADU, there would be some other small changes that I think could be made that would bring the project really fully into compliance. But I don't know, this is kind of a question to Glenn, because I feel like it would be easier to approve this project if we could talk about the ADU and make suggestions, but if we're not allowed to register them as conditions, then I feel really hamstrung to have any positive effect on this design.
Yeah, so I think that's probably something between the CRC and the property owner, since the CRC is not allowed to comment on ADU, however, they may make recommendations that may affect the ADU itself. So if we can be in agreement, like for like accepting openings to like some comments regarding like the ADU. If that can make the process like easier or simpler, then and you're willing to accept like any like reasonable like suggestions from the committee, then we may move forward toward that direction. So what do you think?
Well, I think that we've presented the whole plan so that we can look at it holistically, but. So I guess we just have to use our common sense here, and you know, we're certainly open to suggestions.
Okay. I'm gonna pitch one that I wonder if I can phrase in terms of just the garage. If the garage, let me get to say, if I can get my more there, some more. If the garage volume shifted, let's say 4 feet towards your house, then, and the ADU volume stayed where it was. So we wouldn't be changing the ADU volume at all, but it would be now inset from the garage volume on 2 sides, and you would have balcony on 2 sides, a smaller balcony on the one side. Than you have now, we would just kind of.
Smaller deck.
A smaller deck, yeah, a
Balcony.
smaller deck and a balcony on the other side. That would, in a sense, kind of double the amount of articulation that we have without
Do you know how the two-story?
And it would also reduce the slope of the driveway, because the driveway would become longer.
I'm not sure.
So you're basically saying slide the lower box back
Yeah.
and leave the top box where it
Yeah.
is.
What if
So-
it's like lower box
well-
back 4 or 5 feet?
Because this is basically, they'll never ever get to be in the shade. This is shadow. That's bedroom there, that's shadow, it would
What
never.
if we slide it back 2 or 3 feet and just make that roof then, instead of trying to use it as a balcony, if you're not interested in using it as a balcony?
Wouldn't that effectively prohibit us from having a tandem parking space though? Because we're gonna have 5
You
drivers.
don't say the garage changes, it's just changing.
I'm just saying, instead of like, you have a volume,
Sliding.
house over, you have
Yeah,
a
they-
volume over a square.
Yeah.
The intensity right now, you know, two-story.
Everyone's talking, I don't understand, I'm sorry.
Let's. just maybe
She's
the
saying
elevation.
moving this bottom box, the garage, sliding it towards the house.
Okay,
So if you slid that, if you slid, in this case, if you slid it east
I see,
and you left the top where it is, you'd have
You'd have an offset.
an offset.
I see.
So typically, we like to see a second story volume inset from the first story, and you've done that on one side.
Right.
If we were to shift the garage volume back, however much, if you were to want the balcony on that side, then I would say 3, 4, 5, 6 feet to make that a useful balcony. If you didn't want a balcony on that side, then I would say shift it back and then 18 inches and put a roof volume where it would break down the massing. It could be, you know, you see your own garage has kind of a gable which sits under your main gable.
Yeah.
You could have a secondary gable form on that side that would break that down in a similar way, or you could just have a little shed roof going down in that direction, and that would introduce some more articulation. And then I also, I still feel like this would be a little more successful if the garage slab were lower, because 17% is pretty darn steep, and I know that it's making probably for great views for that balcony and ADU above, but it also feels like it's kind of dwarfing your house at the size that it's at. If it came down a little bit, then it would, I mean, you have kind of like, your house is in 1 story, so it's like kind of petite already, but then it would be a little bit more in context. And that might be moving me in the direction of feeling a lot more comfortable about it.
Yeah, well, also, the portion of the deck that's cantilevered out, I would also be pushing for a bigger garage, you know, just further.
To not have that unenclosed.
Yeah,
space.
that unenclosed space, and that it's, I'm not, you know, and I see there's windows there, but it's a garage, right?
Yeah.
It's not-
Is that the side that faces the view, the best view? The where your stairs are coming up the side?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that why you're
That's,
rounding
that's
around to get
northwest.
the view there?
Yeah, northwest.
That's right. It's a view deck.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I make a comment too about you, mentioned about the whole ADU garage structures, relative to the size of the existing house. Because of the height and all that, I mean, part of the idea of not sending it down deeper is excavation, and then of course it costs a lot more money. And so that's, you know, harder, but then also there is, you can kind of see the contours of that, there is quite a difference in elevation between the
higher.
primary house and where the garage and ADU is. So it doesn't put both roof lines at the same line, but they're much closer than just a big
Yes.
second story looking down on a single story. I don't know if you can see that the way it's drawn.
Yeah, and,
Yeah, it's significant, it's kind of deceptive, but if you look at the
Living
ridge.
residence is up.
So it's on a
A
hill.
lot higher.
and the part of your garage that's not defined as parking here, may I ask, is that, like, are you intending to have a workshop, or is it just kind of like you needed space there because you wanted space above, and so it's?
So I'm not speaking about the ADU, but it's an 800 square foot space, and the resident downsized 2 houses. So, you know, we're planning storage shelves and things like that, but you know, we've got the tandem parking space for our multiple drivers, right? And then the space for an electric vehicle. I don't know if you wanna
Yeah,
add.
and there's, I mean, I think you can see in the drawing too, there's basically you have room for the elevator shaft, so she can get, she pulls her car in, she can walk around the corner to the elevator, so. Obviously that takes up space. And so then, you know, there's like that little, I think what you're looking at, a little leftover sort of alcove in the
Yeah.
corner, which. I mean, it's always handy to have more storage space, and so, and I think the previous. Project, we talked about a garage and there's no room for, you know, cabinets or one of those. And, you know, because everyone's got to store something there, like where's your holiday ornaments go or whatever, and so that's in part what that would get used for, it would. You know, plus it would look weird to have a cutout,
Yeah,
right, I mean, that doesn't really make sense.
okay, let's get to some more nuts and bolts. You have an exterior, palette page?
It's on the, yeah, it's on it's on A201,
Let's review. Which page number is that?
201, A201, sorry, page.
18?
Yeah.
15, there it is, okay, we'll tell you what palette. And what's the exterior siding on your existing home? Are you matching that, or are you contrasting with it?
Board and batten.
Board and batten, what color, is it the same color as this, or?
No, it's
Yeah, a little creamy.
complementary.
Okay, so we have a spec on the doors, we have a spec on the light is dark sky compliant. I like palette on the doors. I'm just gonna hit some easier stuff now.
It's, yeah, I mean, this colors are coming
You
out.
guys have more exterior lights than are permitted. We typically allow for one per door. So there's one at either side of the garage doors, which seems it's a double door. I'm inclined to go ahead and allow. There's one, and I'm not supposed to talk about the ADU, but there's one on either side of the French doors going into the ADU on the west elevation,
Yeah.
which I think could probably be reduced from 2 to 1.
Yeah, no problem, yeah.
And then there's one underneath the deck there and the garage, kind of between the 3 windows and between window
On the,
66 and 115.
on the
There's-
south elevation.
yeah, there's an exterior light there, which, I don't know if that, is that like a wood deck or is that like a impervious deck?
It's a wood deck.
So we can't light the other side there.
So I'm sorry, which the one between 116 and 115, Glenn, can you just slide over a little? Glenn, just slide over a little bit, please.
And then there's one, you know, next to door 10, and then there's one on either side of the corner.
Yeah, we can definitely take some out for sure.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
think we could just say,
Yeah, no
I would
problem.
allow for one at either side of the garage door, because that's an exception. I usually feel like it just looks silly if we just have one. Otherwise, I would ask for the exterior lights to be reduced to just one per exterior door.
Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah.
And then I think that the living specifications in the palette are all fine. The pitch on this roof is steeper than on your existing house, is that right? This is 712.
It's, yeah, the existing house is, it varies a little, it's
Mhm.
12.5 and at one part 12.3, which at some point it was, whatever they did, it was 12.3 and 12.5, and this 12.7.
You need that, I mean, I thought because of the shape of the house, it was okay, anything different.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it is, I'm just asking.
We initially had it at 12.5 to match it, and it just went.
Yeah, no, it looks kind of nice, much cheaper.
12.12, what was gonna happen?
Yeah. More of these kind of like smaller things we can hit on. So you are, and you do have a horizontal siding on the first floor and then the vertical board and that.
Yes.
Second floor.
And to your previous comment, to your last, that is, the board and batten overlaps.
Okay.
It's in there.
Okay. Would you, well, I guess I would just have this conversation internally first. A lot of times we like to see the base color being a tone or 2 tones darker than the upper color. You feel like I don't have to break up the massing if the lower siding.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good comment. I heard what you guys say. I think we should have, see if that's a good one. It's ultimately.
Yeah, would you be agreeable to making the hardy blank, so you have the color of the storm on both levels, even though you have a textural difference?
Yeah,
It might break down the massing more to go darker on the bottom or lighter on the top, and sort of
yeah, absolutely.
more contrast. So, and I would be fine with that going either way, so it could step
So increasing the contrast.
increasing,
absolutely.
increasing the contrast or
absolutely.
creating some contrast between the 2 kinds of siding.
Yeah,
And then I think if you're amenable to shifting the garage volume back, I guess again, for internal discussion, the things I'd be interested in would be seeing the garage volume shifted back,
Yes.
say 2 feet, and I still feel like it would be nice for the garage volume just to sink somewhat. I don't know what you feel about that's a bridge too far.
Suggestion that.
We're not gonna have a suggestion, but we can make.
Yeah, okay, well, it's.
can I say something on that? Basically, we looked at that and I went as far as we could before we started, before we went to, what was it, 250 cubic feet?
Oh, you're
Two
getting
hundred and
into
fifty, we're getting into that. If we get into that, it's a whole
other.
crazy expensive, the expense went through the roof.
Okay,
So we looked at it.
are
Of course,
you?
everything was to try and get this thing as down as we could.
Are you open, so let me just make sure I have, so the, oh, no, you know what, that 9 inches is accounting for the slope anyway, so you are an 8-foot plate at the top of
Yeah.
the slope, okay. So then, I am feeling like if we shift the garage back, I'm gonna just say a minimum of 2 feet. And introduce on that side either a secondary roof form or a balcony. If we darken the color of the siding on the first floor or lighten the color of the siding on the second floor in order to introduce contrast. And if we reduce the number of exterior lights to 1 at each exterior door and 2 at the double wide garage door.
Only
Yeah,
other one that has, the deck canopy, the entrance canopy.
yeah, let's take a look at that, what's great.
If you go to page 15.
Yeah, so this, kind of walkway underneath the deck to the side of the garage. I see you have this attractive lattice underneath the stairs.
It's not.
It's not going all the way, I mean, it could, but then it would block windows, is that, what do you foresee happening in that zone?
Just, the only reason, but basically I just put it there because, well, articulation. And without it, it kind of looks bland, so I wanted to break it up somehow and,
Well, it's
by putting it there, it just kind of broke everything up and kind of connected the stair to the lower part a little better. But now that it's there, and to answer your question more directly, it's, gardening stuff. Your gardening tools.
Well, so if it's gardening tools and storage, then I wonder if the lattice might extend, but then the lattice would be covering some of their windows, so then we.
Oh, and actually, sorry, let me just, finish that. If we could extend it, if you look at it, if you're probably looking at it, the deck actually exceeds beyond the stairway. So the structurally, the deck support is further out and the stair support is in here. So we just brought the lattice work up to that.
Okay,
And it stopped there.
and then those posts under the deck are further out.
Exactly. So if you extended the lattice work, you'd have no support.
You'd have to jog it out.
Right.
What's on the other side of the window? Is that the parking space or the storage space, the like the Christmas, seasonal decorations? And just the window there, are they there for decoration?
This is garage space. Yeah, primarily decoration and light and light. And to break it again, primarily for light, but just to break that whole thing up.
Well, it just seems like if you did have the lattice, then, the garage was one of those that had the frosted windows or something. You could bring in a lot of light, but just, and I'm responding to Rebecca in previous meetings where just the idea of cantilever, having a cantilever out, it just makes the building feel, not top heavy, but just imbalanced there, but the lattice would help.
Yeah.
I mean, we could, if, Glenn, can you go to an to 15 again?
We could exchange with.
Oh, sorry, we're on it, just go down. Just go down to this elevation. Yeah, so basically, I mean, we could start the lattice a step out, and that sort of give it more three-dimensional depth, and bring it up to this point. That'd be no problem.
I mean, that would actually create kind of a nice screened area.
And it would break the whole.
Yeah.
Instead of all being in the same plane, it would step it out a bit.
Yeah, and then if you wanted to change or shift
We could
the
just,
size or position of Windows 66 to better
right,
coordinate with that, so it wasn't kind of.
we're gonna get rid of that light anyway, so, yeah.
Yeah,
So
or
we
you
could
could
do
just move it sort of slightly over to the next bay.
Right.
Would you feel like that? If it was just one additional bay of lattice, would that do?
Yeah, so I guess if I were about the plan, you extend the lattice to, additional bay to the next support structure, at least to the next support.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that's,
That would be problematic structurally with them.
no, that's,
The lattice.
It's
can
just-
shift
just-
out
just-
of
just
frame,
makes
it doesn't have
this-
to
yeah.
be,
basically,
it could
it's
be
just
out.
offset, and, yeah, it's just on the posts.
so it wouldn't be in line with the existing lattice.
No.
It would be with the
stepped
lattice
out, yeah.
posts, yeah. that's
That
pretty
would
much
like.
more. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would actually.
Because actually, if you look at it at this plane, it'll line up, but when you're in the street, nothing will align, and it'll break it all up.
And then, I mean, if you wanted, you could actually continue it all the way at 30 or 36 inches as like, kind of like.
Yeah.
Fencing or something, I would make that a suggestion, just an option
Yeah.
to.
You can even change the height, yeah.
Well, we'll just say at least.
Yeah.
To the next structure, and suggest further.
Okay.
So that's 4 things,
So the only thing I think we gotta discuss is the shift on the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think that's something we're gonna have to.
Yeah, are you guys open to that?
I'm open to the idea. I'm a little worried about how it misaligns everything and, I don't have all the numbers in my head, but, if we move it back, that's a lot more excavation. And so I don't know if that gets in the way of how much we're allowed to do. And of course, I'm thinking about the expense of that. What's that?
You could move the ADU forward instead of moving the garage back, I was trying.
Well, the reason we have it exactly there is because this is the ocean view of the two neighbors behind. So we strategically placed it, so it sort of threaded the needle and maximized ocean view. So that's why it's where it is.
Yeah, if you're not sure whether shifting the volume is something that's workable for you guys. And if you want to take more time to analyze it, then you could request a continuance and you could take the time to see if that's something that feels feasible. I would push you into having a decision today.
Part of the reason for the shifting was to improve articulation, but we just talked about a succession of additional changes. So do you still feel that collectively that would be required for sufficient articulation, considering that we have different siding, different paint colors? We can make some of these other concessions. We're just really worried about the line of sight of some of the people we've already been.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut it off, but yeah, what we described, all 4 of those conditions are this, not.
Yeah, the other things are all really pretty minor. I mean, this is shifting the garage back would be kind of really the only substantial.
Yeah, we understand it's not
Um,
easy, quick.
No, and, just to be.
I mean, just if you look at if you're on that, that's the height of the existing grade there, so if you take that, you can really see the cut. I mean, that's not.
But you're excavating back the retaining wall you have is how many feet behind the wall of the garage?
Yeah, it is 5 feet.
Right, so if you
Yeah.
make the garage back 3 feet, you would, without changing your excavation at all, you would still have a compliant 3-foot passageway around.
And just to be clear, the intent with this comment or this condition is that you don't have the 2 feet wall going straight up, it's that you have the jog.
Yeah.
Well, what about, I mean, I don't wanna like have this come across, I'm just going against you, but I'm just trying to think about how to streamline the whole thing and not change big stuff, but if, what about between the ADU and the garage on that wall? You know, you mentioned like a shed roof over that funny thing that hangs out, well, what if there was, I guess now we call it a awning, but does that help to break that up, or is that not?
Just gonna apply.
What do we put a
That-
pergola?
that-
What do we put a pergola?
That's an easy way to add something there without changing structural and all that, but,
We could put a pergola across there.
you still have a shared 2-story wall.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only thing with that, right, for like, for wheelers, that can be knocked off in like 6 months.
Yeah,
Nothing. So we're presenting ideas that you realize this is ultimately your design and
yeah,
your review, so we're trying to thread the needle. So that's why we're kind of bringing it back to intent. If there's a way to do that, that feels like it can address that. And I appreciate your suggestion. That does feel a bit tackling. Not.
what's the point of the lattice? I didn't get that at all. Extending the lattice was just an idea to help minimize the amount of decking, which just feels like it's on stilts. One of the things in the guidelines is to avoid development that's over,
Stills.
yeah, stilts is the word they use. I mean, often that's in reference to where you have a big slope, but again, also the guidelines encourage second story to be smaller than first story. So what we have now is the second story, which on this side is wider than the first story and on stilts. So Mark was sort of saying, oh, I almost wish the first story was wider so that it was capturing underneath that. And then we thought, well, rather than adding more, more square footage, more floor area, just adding a little bit of screening to help with that.
But the screening isn't any purpose, it's not to hide junk or anything like.
Well, I think they were saying they did also expect to have more equipment and things of that nature.
Or what?
So I think the idea was that it would also screen lawn equipment or storage or all that. That's
Seems to me, I mean, I have the same, I'm a neighbor, and I have the same area in front of, I have a deck in the front of my house, and I use underneath as a nice shade guard, because it gets down with light. Bromeliads grow good there, succulents grow very well there. I would not want somebody tacking up a piece of lattice.
Well, we just asked them what they were planning on using that area for, so had they said that it was a shade garden, we would have
Yeah,
been.
sorry, no, I came late because I went over to supervise Forest's office thinking you were having your meetings
Oh,
there.
sorry, only when we have the really big ones
I
to meet over there.
Okay, sorry.
Did you, I mean, we can, if you have, did you want to make comments on this project or arrive too late?
No, I turned in my speaker slip, I'll wait, I was just asking because
Yeah,
I.
so-
Our public comment period.
We closed the comment session. I have read your comment here that's regarding construction parking.
Right.
So you may connect with the property owners offline because it's not something we can address here. That's regarding like the construction operations.
Well, it's our.
Actually, I can answer that for you. The building department and inspectors in particular are extremely strict about that.
Okay.
I don't know if you know where you live, the Mutri house that just went up on Bernal, the house that went up on the end of Bernal. And what's oceanfront?
The one right next to the single story house.
The one right next to the path that goes to the bluff.
Okay, so it backs up to the bluff?
Yeah,
I know the house.
they were They were extreme, they were all over that.
And they were everywhere. In fact, there were people. living in RVs.
Inspectors were.
That's okay, I just wanted to ask because on the other side, there's this giant storage container that's been there a really long time, and I mean, I wouldn't object if they parked over on that street, but it's semi-dead end street.
So your
Yeah.
comments are recorded here,
Okay.
on parking, and
Okay.
ultimately, that's, applicable during the construction. phase.
Right,
So
and the
I
other
think
part-
it's good to make that comment.
And the other thing was the driveway, their main driveways on their house faces La Grande, but that one is gonna face a very busy street.
The same amount of business. I'm sorry? It's the same amount of business. There's no difference if they're going around the corner, the same traffic.
It's more blind there, I think, because people come whipping around San Lucas and then they go with you. All right, never mind.
We just have 5 minutes and we have a.
Go ahead,
big
go ahead,
issue
go ahead.
to deal with.
I didn't know you only had 5 more minutes, sorry.
Don't we close at 5?
Yeah, we'd like to.
Yeah.
We can go like, but
Okay, so it's a discussion again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
But, okay, so we have those conditions that we listed, and I think the one that we were really kind of, the meaty one, if you will, is this articulation of
Right.
the first and second floor. So, if you guys want to discuss this, it's great. The options here are to make a vote that would include that change, or look for more time, a continuance as well, to look at the different options for this.
For this first requirement or this recommendation to shift the building, there are implications that include grading, structural, all kinds of other things. This project has been considerably delayed. We're trying to build it for my mother. I would just ask that you maybe reconsider that requirement, because even if we were to put a balcony, we'd be looking at our neighbors on the other side. We've already shifted the building quite a bit to make sure that we're accommodating for our off-street parking, given those concerns. But we've minimized a lot of the space here too, of our personal yard, to accommodate the entire project. So as we keep creeping it out, we're minimizing any kind of space that I have with my husband and my 2 kids. So I guess I'm just appealing to you because it is a considerable change just to increase articulation when we've already presented a lot of different design details that we feel makes a very beautiful project. This is our 3rd round of architecture project work. So, I guess I would just ask you to reconsider that first item for all those reasons. It's very expensive. We're talking about 2 feet. And we've talked to all of our neighbors to make sure that this is sited in just the right place and accommodates everyone. So really what we're talking about is kind of a visual that, this articulation on one side that faces just us in our private yard. Yeah.
So, I mean, I know you talked about making some concessions and, having some flexibility on some of the other guidelines. So I guess I just would appeal to you to maybe have some flexibility on this item so that we can move our project forward.
Honestly, I feel like we've already, like a lot of the other comments are, if you will, the quick wins or the quick, pattern, design, et cetera. There's other projects I'll put out there that have been continued or stopped because of the lack of articulation and design, in that regard. So, that's the backside, right? But also the side. On the upper right, to the right there, that's not articulated.
It's not articulated at all, it's kind of letting it go.
And exactly, so, and then you have the side where you have the deck, if the deck wasn't on that side, and we're talking about, 3 walls where they're basically 2 stories straight up, it's a box. So, yeah, in one way is we're just asking for one side additions.
Yeah, I think that, again, if we were to look at the project independent of the ADU, we'd be looking at a very large garage, which is an unarticulated box, which would not meet the guidelines. If we look at the project with the ADU or think about the structure as a whole in order to consider the relationship, then making this one shift pushes us in the direction of compliance with the guidelines. There's still, the rear side, the long side opposite the one with the deck, which as Mark mentioned, has zero articulation, and then the back side, which has zero articulation. And so I think that, in sort of, in deference to, wanting to try and facilitate being able to get ADUs built quickly on the coast, we're already really kind of looking for the least that we can ask for to make this plausibly compliant with the islands.
I was gonna say another way to look at it is if we just, if it was separated, the first floor was built, not that anyone would, just you build the first floor, right? And then when you build the ADU, you know, there's nothing we can say about that at all.
They would approve the first floor.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, is that as it's being presented and all at once together with that structure on the top, then it's pretty much a box.
Can I sort of summarize sort of what I'm just trying to say back what I think you're saying and then how this process works, because it's new to me also, just to make sure I understand before we say yes vote or no vote. So if we move the garage back 2 feet, so that I think, I can't remember who pointed out, that 5-foot walkway behind the way just gets skinnier. So we're not changing any excavation or grading in any way.
Not required to, would be your choice.
So then if we put some kind of something like a shed roof along the back that covers that 2-foot step back. That takes away 2 feet of our deck in the front. We have to think about the alignment of the elevator now that potentially encroaches on the parking space. So we got to figure out how that kind of works. Hopefully structural, can't remember what the structure looks like in that back wall, but I don't know if that's another whole big consideration. If we say, yeah, go ahead and vote, then that's what we end up having to do. If we say don't vote, then that means we have to go back, draw everything up, come up with different ideas, and then we all meet again and go through the same motion, and that's in a couple months from now. And
yeah, if the conditions that we've outlined in this hour, which we feel make the project something we could nominate or recommend for approval, concern you, don't work for you, you don't know how they're gonna work for you, you need to play out whether they're gonna work for you, then I think requesting a continuance is probably the right move, so that you can either evaluate. We would then write you a letter and outline the ways in which we feel the project is not compliant, and then you could either come back with something which is based on the conversation we've had here today, as close as you feel you can get to what it is that we're asking for, or you can define any other, you can come back and change the project in any way that you feel like would allow you to get to a yes vote. I don't think that just changing a little bit of color, adding a little bit of lattice is gonna be sufficient for me to get to a yes vote today. These are really tricky projects because, it's really hard when I get back to look at the building and be asked not to talk about the whole building.
sure.
And I'm very much in favor of ADU development on the coast. We have a housing crisis. We're not trying to stop more housing from getting built. But I think the garage, if we look at it as a standalone, is so far outside of compliance that you actually have a better shot, I think, here today. Because I agree with you, it's an attractive design. It's it's a simple gable volume with the balcony. There's a little bit of articulation. So, I think that if you feel like you can make a shift work, understanding, obviously, elevators are tricky. I think we could look at that a little bit now and try and get to more comfort around. Let me see which way that. So if we shifted the garage back, yeah, that would go in, let's see where it's upstairs.
Actually, it would, okay, go, wait, this, okay. Yeah.
It shift everything forward.
It would shift.
Move the elevator towards the car, if that's drawn.
We're gonna move everything westward.
Yeah, I would move it towards the car, that's right. And you have the depth of your garage in
That's a pretty gray area.
223, almost 24, so, you wouldn't be encroaching on your required parking if you shifted that back without making any changes to the footprint upstairs. Alternatively, I'm trying to see whether the kitchen would grow or shrink if you were to just pull it back. Okay. But again, these are reasons why applicants sometimes request continuances so that you would have time to work all of that out, if you're not sure that it would work for you. Obviously, I know that you want to come out here with an estimate today, so if you want to take a little bit of time to look through with your architect.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, we can wait we can give it a few minutes.
Thanks a lot.
Like,
Yeah, I
take
mean,
some
just-
time to consider if you think you can make it work.
Alternately, the third option is we strip that condition out, but then we vote on it, and I think you would know what the vote is.
Well, right, you already told us that, yeah. And thanks for being clear on that.
Showing the sign that has the one wall in question that we're talking about?
The elevation plan.
No, that shows.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously,
Like for a
East iteration, not saying the subject of some of the.
Why you don't like the idea of having an awning for more articulation, because I think that would look nice. I do. I mean, I'm definitely in favor of ADUs. So, you know, there's a lot of houses in our neighborhood that just go straight up like this house.
I just have one question, clarification question for CRs. Maybe I didn't catch the response regarding like adding like some architectural feature or like some like storage unit here this year.
Yeah, I mean, is that, so it wouldn't be full depth so that you'd have the estimate, but you build something, it'd almost be like a deeper, like you're expanding, you're adding more square footage.
yeah.
Yeah, or
I could be open to adding a enclosed storage unit onto the back of the garage so that it was not moving things, but was achieving the articulation.
Going
Right here, or right here?
Yeah.
and I didn't.
So Marco, right here?
Do we get that free LC?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
I don't know where you are on
It
your.
would come out, but go to the grade. I don't know if it adds to your square footage.
Either or, like,
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Actually,
I like shifting the garage back because it also.
I got it,
The driveway.
so you like shit, yeah.
I like that, but I think that either one of those would give us the articulation we need, and we could probably craft language that left it up to you, which one you do.
And I just have another thing to say, just one idea from a recent project I worked on. Someone proposed like a very long, like from the ground to ceiling, kind of like a bay window.
Yeah.
Like a very long bay window. That would not jeopardize the lot coverage, but it's a user CR.
Because it doesn't connect to the ground. Yeah. I mean,
Okay, on the first one.
Who's getting creative here?
Yeah.
So, okay, so what about this? What if, in addition to the easy ones that we mentioned, we create a condition which is to add an articulated volume at I wish I had my cardinal
East-ish.
orientation south. Is that no, north?
Yes, the south, this elevation.
Yeah.
This is south,
Yeah.
but the one we're talking about is this, the short wall, which is more east. It's sort
East,
of
okay.
southeast, because that's
Let's call it east facade.
Yeah,
for-
let's do
for
that.
purposes
towards
of-
Montero Mountain.
Is that what it's called on your, yeah, you're calling
The
it. So-
the garage faces west.
Mhm, okay.
So it's back wall.
So this is the east wall.
So if we create an articulated volume on the east facade, which is either the entire first floor shifted back, or the addition of a 1 or 2 story volume that does or does not touch the ground, which has a secondary roof form on it, which is below. So not something going all the way up to the ridge, but something that either creates a roof line at the floor plate and garage ceiling, or potentially, I could imagine, for a second,
Yeah.
to Glenn's Bay idea, putting something here that came up and came kind of like under this, like not something that would go all the way up, but adding a secondary volume and roof form to the east facade of the garage and or garage plus ADU, depending on how tall you want to make it.
Well,
I think that would go out there.
Yeah, what I want to avoid though is just, having it's like a faux.
Yeah, not just like, we don't want just a tier 2-story wall that you like tack it or one actual wall right there. Could be a storage shed, could be the garage.
It's gotta look integrated into the structure,
Yeah.
not something from Home Depot you tacked on. Right. Well, I mean, I assume that's what you're trying to say, right?
Is it, and the reason, just saying this now, this doesn't have to go into notes, the reason that I like it being the garage shifting back
Mhm.
is that will also take your 17-foot slope and bring it down. And then make it these pavers function a little bit better.
Yeah.
make the driveway approach better. It doesn't have to be that way though. If that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, they're like,
The vertical approach, I've done projects with elevators, it's like a puzzle, I get it, to make those things work, so.
We're responsive.
We can use some flexibility and options to let you just move forward and work it out with your design.
so one thing I
We
mentioned.
could do that.
Maybe I mentioned putting the elevator tower. Yeah, so stand the elevator shaft a foot away outside, so you get this whole elevator width 5 foot out all the way up.
Instead of coming out of the building.
Coming out of the building. So we ensure the setback.
But this isn't the primary.
But you see, if you move right back, it does some of this.
Yeah.
Even though.
Hearing their architectural lyrics, presenting some popping the volume out to create like a tower, and that
Yeah.
sounds like it would create additional
The
articulation.
only problem is if we need the base for the elevator, and then that would go into the setback a foot.
That's gonna be a
So
problem.
that would be a problem.
If it's, cause it gets an elevator, it's gonna go.
Yeah. That's not gonna be.
The primary suggestion is to show the storage on this. I just want to make sure that I understand what the suggestion is. Like how high does it go? Like what happens to the windows? What, I don't understand that part.
I think that we would try to craft the language to give your team some flexibility, that it would be at least as tall as the floor plate, the ceiling floor plate between the garage level and the ADU level. So, for example, yeah, can I? So, I would say that if if you shifted this entire volume back, right, and you look at something.
Yeah.
Like this, which obviously. If you add something onto the back, it could be just something with a shed roof. Or I think what Glenn was kind of going to was like, we could do some kind of a bay.
Right.
And if you did some kind of a bay, potentially you could do something like. It's not like, to try and not tell you what to do, but give you a series of, like a menu that you can choose from. And then we would get articulation here, we'd have articulation here and here, we'd be adding colors, which would give some articulation on the long side. And we would just try to make the language.
So hang on, before you go away, the other thing I was, when you said shifting everything, I think, well, what if you just, I know we don't solve that. You could shift the whole top. After that. Can't believe it.
I mean, the guidelines tend to want it to go the other way, but I mean, yes, I think that could work.
I mean, just as an option. I mean, I kind of like this option.
Do we have the area to add something like that?
That doesn't
It
go to the
doesn't have
ground.
area.
Oh, it doesn't, even though the coverage.
Off the ground.
Yeah.
And this,
I think it can only be 8 feet wide, or
You
there's
do,
some
there you
limitations.
go.
So if you want to go down that route, since the CRC is going to give you some flexibility, so after today, if you decide to go down the bay window route, contact me, I'll send you definitions. So that's the safest route.
Yeah.
Or like even tomorrow, send me something, I'll send you definition and you make sure you
Yeah.
will comply.
I've never seen one like this, but in theory, it could be a bay window and still have the floor here, so
Yeah.
it's like actually a bay there and like a story stone there, I don't know, you know. Yeah.
The garden window that's bigger.
And then, I mean, still, if this whole thing, if you could make it work with the elevator, and then the other way, if you did this and you just did this,
Yeah.
that would be, I think, the most compliant with the guidelines.
Your
That
original
was-
suggestion.
Yeah, this is part of the original suggestion, but I'm happy to, just try to write it out so that you don't have to make this decision in 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'd be great to like.
And
come back and forth.
you don't have to, wait a month or two to come back.
That would be
here.
awesome.
Yeah.
Not that we don't want to come back and see you, but we want to move it forward. All right. Thanks for.
Yeah.
going back and forth with that. It's helpful. Yeah.
Would you guys like to move to the I think.
Yeah, let's move to the next step.
Think, you want to summarize, make a movement?
We'll calculate,
Yeah.
but I see, essentially. He's gonna have a chance. The motion to recommend this project with 4 conditions. One is that there's articulation on the east wall or the back of the garage, if you will, where there's a minimum 2 feet articulation between the first and second level. Rebecca will write out the language of the different options available for that, but the gist of it is to provide that articulation of the 2 feet. That's one. The second one is that to reduce the number of exterior lights, 1 per exterior door, and then 1 on each side of the double wide. The third one is to introduce more contrast between the 2 siding colors, between the upper and lower. And the fourth is to extend the lattice underneath the stairs, the deck stairs, so that it goes to at least the next deck support.
Yeah.
And those are the 4 conditions. Any suggestions, Rebecca, as well? Oh, maybe a suggestion to drop.
Suggestion to lower the garage plate to reduce the, slope of the driveway, but that's a suggestion, which means do the way well.
Yeah, just to add one thing real quick regarding the color contrast, we can only comment on the lower floor.
Okay,
So,
so let's say to darken,
Darker.
make the bottom darker and,
Either way.
maybe we can say with the goal of
The point is more,
contrast without mentioning what we're creating contrast.
yeah, the point is more contrast.
Yeah, no, we're kidding.
Point taken.
I second that.
Okay. Okay, I'll do a roll call. Rebecca Ketkin,
Yes.
Mark Lee.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. This is only a recommendation for approval. And now please work with me to get the issues addressed, like, because this involves like maybe like some substantial changes to the plans. So work with me and submit a revised plan to me before we move on to the planning commission process. So yeah, work with me in the next few weeks and then let's get this addressed and then let's have a complete plan before we tentatively schedule for planning commissions.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks, man.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks for working through all that with them. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and okay, we'll be in touch and thanks for teamwork.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can I get a
okay,
motion
great,
to close the meeting?
please.
Take note of that, please.
Second. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, roll call, Rebecca Ketkin,
Yes.
Mark Lee. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Yeah.
Oh.
Thanks again, you guys.